behalf of the University of Calcutta, I welcome you all to the one-day international symposium on making history visible. We are a bit late in starting our session. For the first session, the inaugural session, I will request Professor Bhomi to chair the session. I will request Professor Bhomi to come up to the stage. And I will request Professor Hori Vasudevan, Professor of History, University of Calcutta, who will be giving the keynote address. Please come up to the stage. And I also request Professor Bhaskar Chakraborty, Director of the Center for Social Sciences and Humanities, and also Secretary Professor of International Relations, University of Calcutta, who will formally welcome you to today's program. Please, I request Professor Bhomi to take over, please.
This is a very interesting symposium, and the topics marked here as the making history visible. And probably with this heading, my understanding is that how museums can make visible to the specimen, to the visitors, and thought that the museums are functioning very well through their display, through their exhibitions, either through permanent or temporary, whatever it may be. Even the big museums are also sending their educational staff with objects to different rural schools and others. In this way, the museums are trying best to make history and archaeology and other subjects too visible to the common masses. With that, with this view, this symposium is arranging, and for that, Professor Bhaskar Chakraborty, Centenary Professor of International Relations of this university, will give welcome address, followed by the main theme, the keynote address given by Professor Hori Shankar Vasudevan, Department of History of this same university. With this word, I would like to please Bhaskar.
Mr. President, my distinguished friend Professor Hari Vasudevan, ladies and gentlemen, since I am the manager of this facility, Supreo has forced me to play a ceremonial role. To formally welcome all of you to this very interesting workshop that he has been able to organize by mobilizing very significant resources. I find in the list the names of eminent museum administrators from this country and from outside, who are welcome to this symposium. I am not counting their names because all of you are our honored guests, including those who have come to participate in this symposium devoted to this very important theme of how museums can make history visible. Supreo has also asked me to blend this formal ceremonial remarks with a few pieces of my own wisdom on the subject, and I do not claim it. claim any special knowledge in the field, except for the fact that early in my life, I spent a few years in a museum working as a keeper. But then, after a while, I decided to leave the world of paintings and pictures and return to the world of books, with which I have been more comfortable. Since the whole issue of display always had baffled me, I found that it was not a very easy task to rearrange galleries in accordance with our own present requirements and priorities, because this act itself requires a complete reinterpretation of the visual material. And the second reason why Supreo has perhaps chosen me, perhaps with a sense of pity or with a sense of humor, that one of my students has written a thesis on museum history, which is likely to be published very soon. And some of my students who have worked with Professor CALCUTTA have periodically enriched me with their knowledge about how they look at the history of making museums. They are authorities on the subject, and whatever knowledge I possess of how archaeological museums have begun to dominate the museum world in this country late in the 19th and early 20th centuries is a borrowed knowledge. Mine is a derivative knowledge from these young scholars. It would have been much better if Supreo had chosen some of them to interact with people who are involved in rearranging the galleries in our own time. How do you rearrange a gallery? By completely ignoring the history of the making of the museums? Or you import technology in order to create a spectacle that will make a visual impact and will leave nothing at the cerebral sphere? That is a very significant question. I mean, I'm told that some museum administrators are preoccupied in rearranging galleries of great historical museums in this country, regardless of the knowledge that had gone into the making of these museums. I mean, some great museum maker in the 1920s had set up a gallery in one of the most eminent museums in the country, and you do not consider the intentions of the museum maker into the making of this gallery in order to create a very impressive spectacle. So that's a difficult choice for the museum administrator. Are we simply confined to making a spectacle, or the spectacle has some solid foundation? The spectacle leads to the passageways to something which we have forgotten, something which needs to be retrieved, needs to be preserved. I am not an expert on how materials can be made visually more appealing. I had some experience in contributing to a gallery that was set up years ago in the Victoria Memorial with the material that the memorial had possessed, pictorial materials basically. But then when this Calcutta gallery was arranged, some new additions were made by way of statements, by way of written annotative materials to underline the importance of Victoria Memorial as a period museum. So that was perhaps the only experience I had in rearranging the gallery. And later on, when I supervised the thesis which tried to dig up huge archaeological materials, because most museums do not possess their own history. they have lost their records, and most of the records of the archaeological museums are usually available in the dusty shells of the archaeological survey, from which much material was retrieved about how, in the early 20th century, in the particular political ambience of nationalism, the museum makers were anxious to create a visual material for the nation to pride over a great heritage. So when you are looking at the archaeological gallery in the Indian Museum, you are actually entering into a story of how the Buddhamania of Cunningham at one stage was replaced by a certain preoccupation with early medieval sculptures, which by then had begun to be studied by art historians by looking at the regional specializations, the regional specialities, the Bengal School of Art, the Southern School of Art, or the ideas that many of the museum makers of those days shared with people like Kalidas now in the Greater India Society. So the Japanese sculpture would perfectly coexist with medieval sculptures. So this is concerned with the intentions behind the museum making. And that is particularly the domain with which I am interested, because I don't have the ability to measure the kind of technological requirement that a museum has, the kind of display that would make things visible or more appealing. And our knowledge is limited to that particular sphere. But there are certain natural museums, not natural history. Let's first see, for example, if you consider the public palace of Sierra, the town hall. The town hall was arranged in such a way that in future it became a museum, a natural kind of a museum. As a mentor, you see how Ambrogio Lorenzetti, the main one of the great painters of the time in the 14th century, was designing this palace in order to tell a story of how republicanism was greater than tyranny of one man's rule, tyranny of monarchy. So the pictures were arranged in such a way in that Siena town hall that a figure which represents justice got the best of light coming from the front window, and the figure that represented monarchy was put in a dark corner. So people had been experimenting with this kind of visualization of history, not with modern technology perhaps, but there are ideas which are actually behind the making of such galleries. For example, if you enter the Medici Palace in Florence, you suddenly see a tablet written in Latin. Thus, picture gallery is dedicated to the use of the scholars. The people will come and work. This is a house of scholars. So they are arranging things in order that scholars should come and study materials from antiquities to get a sense of how antiquity was relevant for the intellectuals of the Renaissance. So this has been a very fairly old preoccupation. Perhaps people like Supreo, who are going to design galleries in future, or Dilipta, who has been contributing to the visualization of many historical materials in galleries, they would be much better placed in commenting on how one can make history visible. Since we are basically concerned about the intentions of the museum maker, we try to contextualize the material a museum maker actually brings from distant places and bring them together under one roof. Setting up a gallery, we are getting into the files, the diaries, the letters, which actually have created many museums that we visit, and the spectacle impresses us, and we forget the travels of the museum maker, the struggle of the museum maker, the museum maker traveling long distances to collect material to tell a story. We are interested in the story the present museum administrators are interested in how to tell the story in the form of a spectacle. The two domains must meet somewhere. I believe, and I have a fear, that some of the museum administrators are forgetting this very important requirement. Thank you.
In welcome address, Professor Bhaskar Chakraborty has pointed out many things. For that, to make the history or archaeology visible in museum parlance, probably he mentioned many things. To this, I like to add one thing also. The exhibitions arranged in the galleries. Before doing that, visitor survey or exhibition evaluation should be done. In some points, the administrators or even the teachers of they fails to something. What visitors are actually expecting from the objects displayed, there should be no prior end. Then, if these objects are arranged, then the storytelling manner will be very fruitful and effective to the visitors. Moreover, he has mentioned the Calcutta panorama and very big museums like Indian museums and many things. And if these museums are actually do justice to the objects, because mere arrangement of the objects in the galleries will speak only their physical characters. Their intrinsic value or their academic things cannot be focused there, even by the small levels there. For that, the museum personnel, or in other words, the docent services or the experts like even may be hired from the different academic institutions, and if they all together work, then only the exhibition will be more effective. So this is what I offer my sincere thanks to the Professor Bhaskar Chakraborty.
May I have to speak?
Sir, please.
I prefer calling Bhaskar and then Professor Bhaskar Chakraborty. That is too much of a thing. That is that. Now, what I think Bhaskar has struck on the right chord.
But we'll have enough time to discuss my lapses and my greatness. There is, I think,
because of it, I will be able to stay for some. I'm very sick, everywhere, not only physically, otherwise also. Now, what I think that Bhaskar has struck on the right chord. How much is too much and how far is too much. That's the thing. We have to be very careful about when we use the technical excellence. Because with technological, we can take many things to virtual reality to reality. We know what is reality and virtual reality. Virtual reality has no limit. I very much wish to be the renowned professor of takeovers, but I don't actually want to be there. In virtual reality, it could be there. And that will kill the history and the intrinsic, what is it, charm and whatever it may be. But eventually that will be smart.
I'm glad that you are innocent.
So I think this is what we should be very careful about this challenge. Technical excellence has no bound. They can do anything.
Let us actually hear the keynote
And the whole feeling about it using it like anything.
Yeah.
We are far behind it. Go there and come. So that's with the caution. No, the Bhaskar is likely start because he is exploring. All out exploring. Then he will learn that he will stay because it was not his cup of tea. That's what I know. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Now I call upon Professor Bhushan for keynote address.
Mr. Chairman, my friend Bhaskar, my friend Supreo, distinguished members of the audience, students, and visitors. This, I think, is more a keynote session rather than a session in which there should be an inaugural keynote address and various interjections. The reason is that most of those who are on the podium, as well as many others in the audience, have a right to set the tone for the seminar rather than to ask, and I think this would have been better in many ways, in a way that is the way it is shaping, than to ask any one individual to set the tone for the seminar. Once upon a time, from the side of history, there used to be one individual in the city who used to have a tremendous range and command over many aspects of the display history as well as the techniques of display the world over museums. Unfortunately, he has left us. That is Professor Gordon Day. He perhaps could have been able to do justice to such an occasion. Certainly, as has been quite clear, my friend Bhaskar Chakraborty, who, despite his modesty, has spent a lot of time with museums and whose book on the culture of history will actually include a substantial section on museums, is more than competent to handle from the point of view of a different generation the issues that this seminar must be dealing with. And of another generation, there are others who are coming up. The most cardinal, of course, being Kapati Gupta, whose work is very well known and is an established scholar both internationally as well as nationally, but is not in Calcutta at the moment. And further down the list in terms of age, and undoubtedly in the long term, making the same grade in terms of competence would be a figure like Chaudhary, whose book is expected on the museums of this region. These points I wish to emphasize because what I'm about to say is in many ways not at the heart of this particular engagement, this seminar, but I think it is something that all of you who are participating in the seminar should bear in mind as you discuss the nitty-gritty that the seminar is to deal with. I'm making the points that I make more as a teacher of history and as a person who, over the period from 2005, has been deeply concerned with the way in which history is handled and taught, both in the schools, colleges, and universities of this country at the public level. And therefore, please bear with me in the sense that my awareness of the technology as well as the history of the museum is in many ways inadequate. It is, as I said, as a person who wishes the museum to make history visible and who sees problems in this particular domain in this country that I wish to highlight some of the points that I'm going to highlight. First, let me make one point from my stand reasonably clear. There is no doubt, as far as I'm concerned, that the museum as a pedagogic instrument, as an instrument through which the public is informed and made aware, is one of the most important spaces that exists for us in modern life. In pre-modern existence, certainly it did not occupy this particular space. It did not occupy this space either physically, nor did it occupy this space in terms of the imagination of those who thought about the museum. It was essentially a treasure trove that was kept by high dignitaries as well as by royalty, partly for their own entertainment and for the entertainment of those they considered worthy of entertainment. This particular status altered, but in altering, so did the range and territory of the museum, both in terms of space as well as in terms of concern, so that much more ground was given to it, much more attention was centered on it, and it came to occupy a different position in the public arena, the territories through which people walked, that they saw and they paid attention to. And the consequence of this, as far as the teaching of history is concerned, is it opened up a vast possibility. This possibility, however, over time has been explored by essentially three elements. The first element is the person who is actually in charge of dealing with the problem, the presentation. The presentation before the public. How do you actually highlight various things? How do you run these institutions? How do you keep them in a manner in which they do their job as instruments of drawing people in, satisfying their curiosity, and running in some kind of order with a sense of change. That is essentially, for me, the task of the museologist. The second is, of course, if we leave the natural science museums and the art museums and many others, the science museums, a part of this space was to be utilized by the historian, insofar as history was a dimension of the museum. Not all museums actually have a history dimension. Many of them essentially work with, say, art which has a particular timeline of its own. They're not so concerned with the timeline of the context in which an artwork may actually evolve. They're more concerned with the art itself, the creativity, as well as the manufacture of that product. So there is a domain that history itself has come to scoop out within the museum. And this was no mean area. The reason being very simply that history, after all, has become part of modern identity. It is the way in which people establish who they are, the way in which states, communities, and individuals establish who they are. So the result is that, in many ways, although only a part of the overall dimension of the museum space, history itself has claimed a significant role, which is more than that of a simple subject. It is something which affects the heart and the soul, as well as the eye and the mind. So this, therefore, gives us the problem which I think I would like to pose before you today. I'm not saying that the first group and the second group are necessarily not overlapping, but I would say that there is a distinction to be made between the two, and the chair, as well as the comments from the floor, have indicated some of the problems that are frequently involved. There is a third category. That category is actually involved with pedagogy. That is teaching, but teaching at a more popular level. That is the schoolroom, the classroom, of the university, and also the creation of awareness within the public. Now, this is a very inchoate category, but it is a category which is deeply aware, since history is so important, that the museum space must be used for something other than simply outlining the course of history itself. The historian's primary occupation ultimately is with telling his story. And he understands that the museum has become a grand warehouse, as well as an opportunity for both telling that story and referring to it. It is, after all, in India no secret that many classes were actually held by leading researchers within museums, pointing out the nature of the artifact and relating it to the character of the lecture. But this third group takes the history content of a museum into a different domain. They actually wish to involve the public, as well as a growing young community, in the activities of the museum. They wish to use this space in order to create a sense of history. Now, this aspect, this pedagogic aspect of the museum, which is essentially tied to the other two. In the case of India, unfortunately, has had a series of problems. And I would like to highlight these particular problems. First and foremost, I think, extremely important, is whose history is this meant to be presenting? And that is the crucial problem that all museums that deal with history actually face in this country. Are you meant to be producing the history of Bengal? Are you meant to be producing the history of India? Are you meant to be producing the history of the Northeast? Are you producing the history of the Dalit, the woman, the working class? Whose history are you telling? In Kerala, is it acceptable that you should be telling the story of Ashoka in great detail? Certainly when you go to Nagaland Museum and you see a full display on the Mauryas, it seems extremely incongruous that such a thing existed. And when you see that there are no megaliths on display, it becomes even more clear that something inappropriate has taken place. So there is a big problem. There is a big problem concerning whose. And this particular problem has repeatedly been engaged with and solved in a piecemeal manner since the time of independence. What used to be for the British Crown a vast area that had to be collected, that had to be researched, where artifacts had to be collected, and where they had to be studied using the space of the museum, was transformed increasingly with independence into both the domain of scholarship as well as the domain of education. And how you precisely go about this education has always been a moot point. Is it in fact something which is entirely to be associated with entertainment? Is it entirely to be associated with telling the story as the historian would tell it? And who would buy it? Because in fact, as I said, whose history was this? Was it the history of the living people, or was it the the common people, or was it the history of great men of chronicles and chronologies? So this has always posed a problem since 1940, and it is a problem which people attempt to cope with. Today, for instance, in addition to the standard displays of Amaravati at the museum in Chennai, in the Connemara complex, there is a large museum that has come up at Cholamandalam, which is a bringing together of a series of houses of the southern region, which actually offer you the ability to actually explore the way in which one group of people lived. But it is only one group of people. Where else do you look? Do you not look to the peasantry? Do you not look to the working man? And where do you decide to fix your chronology? What about the working classes of the pre-independence period, and how was their story transformed after 1947? At Bhilai, there is an attempt to create around the steel plant a small museum concerning the steel plant. But that is a technology museum. It is not a museum of the living man of Bihar who sat, or all of India really, who sat in the tents outside Bhilai as it was created in the 1950s and the 1960s. So this is our major problem as historians, and it is our major concern, which we pass on to a museologist who is already burdened with hundreds of other responsibilities. Okay, so this point I want to make is number one. The second point I want to make is that since we have international commentators with us, we can at least partly attend to this problem by looking at the examples that they themselves have in their own countries. We are not the first country to have actually faced such a problem. I myself, as a scholar, wandering around, as a young researcher in Finland, remember the great museum in Helsinki, where you had a lot of artifacts that were associated with the government and ruling of the Finnish territories. But I also remember the peasant museum which lay in the outskirts of Helsinki. In the case of Russia, I remember the peasant museums that exist in the area of Vladimir and Suzdal. as well as the Great Hermitage and the Tretjakovka. In the case of Britain, there are a number of local museums that deal with folk issues, and one of my close friends, in fact, used to deal with Welsh museums and forts, indicating the way in which Wales itself had an independent identity and presence of its own. So we are able here to draw on a large experience, and this, I would argue, is an occasion where we should attempt to draw on that experience to enrich our own projection of the way in which we would solve our problems in this country. The third point that I would make is that these problems are practically insoluble beyond a certain point. All we can do is seek assistance and both cogitate and reflect on how we will solve them and make attempts to satisfy the viewers that come to us. Ultimately, history is a continuously changing process. The museum must acknowledge that it will have to be labeled with accusations of inadequacy and misdirection as a professional grows and shapes. All that one can hope for is that one's contribution is acknowledged and that one does one's job as best as possible. For this, all those who are involved in this endeavor, historian, pedagogue, natural scientist, and museologist, I think should sit together a bit more often. That, I think, is the best solution, as it is in most cases. Thank you very much.
In the keynote address, Professor Supreo pointed out many things. The most important points he raised, the problems, the pedagogic problems of the museums, outlining the history to the common masses. Not only that, he also mentioned one serious problem, that the major museums, whose history should be focused in the museum display. And the museologist, and he assigned the responsibility to the museologist. Already museologists have decided this insoluble problem soluble in this way very easily. The big museums, they are focusing the most important historical aspects through display. But there is a tendency nowadays, the establishment of the eco-museum, where the particularly situated in the rural areas, in small areas, where the history and the natural other artifacts also collected and preserved to focus the importance of that particular area. In this way, they are solving that. And in this way, I would like to mention in the eastern India, in particular the Assam area, there are many such small museums. Of course, the one eco-museum also situated in the western coast, south of Bombay also, particularly the particular name I had at the moment forgotten. So in this way, establishing good eco-museums are there. And other things, the history and how that can be made understandable to the onlookers, to the common visitors. There are many ways, and the museum personnel, the museologists, they are thinking in their own way, probably in future that will be focused on. With these words, I thank you, offer thanks to Professor Supreo.
Thank you, sir. We are almost at the end of the first session, that is the inaugural session.
Tea here. Serve tea here.
And this is the time to formally offer the vote of thanks. I extend my gratitude to Professor Abdul Chandra Bhowmik, who despite his busy schedule to come and chair the session. And my deep thanks goes to Professor Rodi Vasudevan for taking such interest and for illustrating the keynote address. My sincere thanks to Professor Bhaskar Chakraborty, who always pampers me with all my odd demands and in odd hours. And I must thank all the delegates, but particularly most of our resource persons and a majority part of our delegation are having a quite busy schedule during the last 7 or 8 days. Despite the natural tiredness and the lethargy, I must sincerely express my gratitude to them for making it here. I thank Professor Dilip Kumar Ray, the eminent teacher of physiology, who could come and despite his falling ill, he could make it here and to get it in interest. And I must thank our collaborators, especially the British Council. From the very beginning, they showed the enthusiasm and tried to make it a success. And also National Council of Science Museums, though the Director General could not come, but on his behalf, the Deputy Director General immediately agreed to come, and he has come here with his fully prepared presentations. My thanks are due to Dr. Gordon Ringtold, who had a very terrific weekend, first with the visa problem and then the hectic tour. And also Caroline Royston, she was so interested that she asked whether the internet connection is there so that she can show some of the projects online. I think she will be able to do it in the next session. And I must thank to our colleagues and senior teachers, especially Piyashi Bharosa and Dr. Indrani Bhattacharya, to make it to put all the efforts to make it a success. And I also thank my students and the research fellows. I think we may break for maybe 10 or 15 minutes to have a cup of tea, since tea and drinks and the food are not allowed inside the auditorium. We have to go out in the adjacent lounge and have a tea for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Then we can proceed with the brainstorming session. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chanda. Thank you, Professor Chanda, for organizing this panel and for bringing here museum professionals and students of the museology department, which I'm particularly pleased about. I hope that there will be a lively discussion too after the panel discussion. You've introduced the speakers from here, and I'm privileged to be in such a distinguished panel already in the discussion. The two speakers from the UK are, of course, Dr. Gordon Ringtold and Caroline Royston, who some of you have heard speak before in the museum conference here in Kolkata and also in Delhi. Gordon Ringtold is director of Scottish National Museum of Scotland and National Museum of Scotland in Chambers Street in Edinburgh has just had recently a brilliant refurbishment. I hope Gordon will be able to tell us a little bit about that. What was the philosophy behind that refurbishment and what is the philosophy behind the master plan of Women Ahead and what the museum is doing in terms of providing access and visibility and experience. Now, most of the discussion will be, since the topic is making history visible and use of technology, I hope there will be some discussion about access to the visitors, about the customer experience when people visit the museum. And of course, Caroline Ross is the other speaker for the Imperial War Museum is also going through a major refurbishment, trying to create a new World War I gallery, and they are very much ahead with their digital work. And it's really good to have Caroline who leads on the digital work for the Imperial War Museum. So with that, may I ask the first speaker, Mr. Manikar, to make his presentation, and we want to go up there, Manikar, and may I request that the lights be put off, at least in this part of the hall.
Good afternoon, distinguished speakers on the dais, distinguished meteorologists in the audience, our guest from UK and Scotland, Professor Supreo, and his students. Indeed, it's an honor for me to come out here today and share some of my thoughts. As you know, I am from the National Council of Science Museums, an institution which presently runs the largest chain of science museums or science centers anywhere in the world. And when we talk about science museums or science centers, I think it is just a little small interesting story I would like to share with you. I joined this organization in 1978, and when I joined, it was the first science center of the country. Because prior to that is I'm talking about 1978, 79. Prior to that, there were science museums in the country. And I was not understanding what is the difference between science museum and science center. But gradually I learned. The approach of science museums was basically on collection and preservation and presentation and restoration. And the approach of science centers was they drifted towards the activity oriented. It was involving visitors, giving them some inputs, expecting some input from them, expecting them to do some activity on the floor, and then take the experience of the exhibits or experience of the science. So I will just try to make an honest attempt to bring in how we use technology in our presentations, and we all feel that it would also be very useful if we use these technological gadgets or ideas even in the history and archaeology museums. Because after all, the purpose of the museums as we define in our books and all that, so is for collection and restoration and preservation and presentation and making available for research. True, everything is true. Ultimately, who are the users of our place? In addition to the researchers, after all, museums are not only for ourselves, not only for those of us who make the museums, they are made for the common people. To bring these common people to the science or to the museum, whether it is a science museum or art museum or a history museum, and as the distinguished speakers were talking in the morning, we must find out what are the visitors' expectations. I think that is one of the most important factors in addition to our way of looking into the museum. We always look at the importance of the object, its historical value, intrinsic value, and other rich contents in our artifacts or in our collection. How do we make that information available to visitors is a real challenge to people like us, the museum designers, or the presenters, or the curators. For last 4-5 days, we have been talking about, we were discussing in the international conference in which our distinguished guests from UK and other countries also are there. And we are talking about transformations in museums in 21st century. There is a necessity of talking transformation because transformation is not a process just begun. It has been going on forever. It's a process of change and we all have to undergo that. If we do not participate actively in that process of transformation, we are likely to become extinct. So museums, if they do not transform, I think there is a danger that we may not be given that priority by the society for whom we exist. So transformation is necessary. And transformation if we want, I think, since that society is changing very fast, adopting technology, we must bring in technology in our museums. And that will probably make our museums more effective, more visitor friendly, more satisfying their needs, and it may convey the subject that we designers want to convey more effectively. We have been toiling with various technological gadgets in science museums and science centers all over the country, and I'm going to show some of the photographs, pictures of the techniques that we have been using in science museums. I'm sure many of you have already visited several science centers or science museums in the country as well as abroad, and you are definitely familiar with these techniques. But I think in a nutshell, we would just like to bring in those mechanisms once again. Can I have the first slide, Carol, please? Yeah. We all say science museum, the way mostly it is, storehouses, or I'm sorry, I think showcases. Whenever we hear the word museum, we have some preconceived notions in our mind. There will be showcases, there will be artifacts, objects, paintings, dioramas, static dioramas mostly, periodic settings, and several other, and I do not know for what purpose, but the small font labels, which are difficult to read many times. That's how we conceive. Can I have the next one, please? I'm showing some of the slides, not basically to criticize any museum. I would like to make it clear. This is not a discussion for criticizing anyone, but we are trying to think on how we can transform, what we can change. Some pictures are just shown here, the way some photographs are displayed. Next one, please. This one is a collection of magazines which have front page interview pictures. The magazine has been conducting several interviews, and that's how I think it's displayed. To me personally, I feel if I come across such display, I don't think I'm going to derive that joy of learning something from this. Maybe others can. But as a common man, I think this is not enough for me. Next one, please. Some other display once again. Of course, nowadays we don't see mostly such displays, but these are the things in, I think, 60s and 70s. Next one, please. This is a period setting. I think a small setup of an office of a history museum, and it shows the machines or the gadgets on which the office people normally work. It definitely takes us to that period, but it just tells us, I think, limited amount of information. It doesn't really give us the full content that is it's a very rich content in this presentation, but somehow I think it's not passing on to the visitors. Next one. This one I purposely brought in because many of us know we have fuel stations, petrol stations, and we take our vehicle, either two-wheeler or four-wheeler, to the petrol pump and get filled. But in earlier periods, this red one is a mobile petrol pump. In those days, such small tanks which are mounted on wheels were there, and they were moving on the roads, and they were able to, people were able to take in petrol or fuel from them at places where they can find them. Nowadays we don't see them. So I think it's an important information. But if it is just presented in this form, I feel we are not doing justice with the subject. Next one, please. So what is the problem? Most of the things we are presenting in a assortment form. We have space constraints because most of our museums have very rich collection, and as I learned recently, I think hardly we are having less than 10% of our collection on display, and huge collection is in our depository which we are not able to put in. We have limited information, as I said earlier. They are not visitor friendly. They are also very difficult to change once we go into these settings, and they are cost intensive, time intensive. Next one, please. So I think technological enhancement is going to be one of the solutions. Better designs we can achieve with technological gadgets. We can achieve modern illumination. I think in the morning we were talking that some object, it was presented in some dark area in the museum. Lighting plays a very important role because the moment you enter the exhibition hall, the general ambience creates a kind of impression on your mind, whether you are going to like it or not, whether you are safe in this place or not, whether you are going to take some input from this hall or not. And the general lighting with these new lighting gadgets available, including these light emitting diodes, which are now available in various wattages, various colors, they play a huge role in achieving not only the general ambience but even the object-oriented illumination. Visitor-friendly presentations are quite possible with the help of computer kiosks or even computer-controlled dynamic presentations, which I think many of you might have seen in different museums, including in the Parliament Museum. Digital archiving is of course a tool available to all of us for our data documentation. Storytelling. I feel storytelling is one thing which we all have to stress upon. Unless we present our collection in the form of story, especially to the younger generation, it's not going to make that impact. Anything, we may have a very valuable collection with us, but unless it is presented in a story form, the younger generation may not be deriving that joy of learning from that. Next one, please. This is one of the picture of the interactive diorama. It's not a static diorama, I mean to say. Interactive diorama has several things. It has light effects, it has audio going on, it has some push buttons or some activities for the visitors to get involved in. They have choice, and I think they are available at the front, that green belt-like panel available. So people can interact with that at their own pace, and then they can derive the joy of that diorama, whatever we are presenting. Next one, can I have this? This is another interactive diorama, I think, in one of the Washington State History Museum. It's a diorama, and you can see that people are doing something. It's not a static one, so they are activating something. Some projections are there which they can interact with, and they are learning gradually in that process. Next one, please. Another interactive diorama, I think it's talking about peculiar display window has been created. I think such peculiar displays also help to raise the curiosity. I think it's a general tendency to look something beyond. And if something is kept in such a small window kind of thing, younger people are more curious to know what is inside. And they are interacting with some diorama. I think it's a language from Egyptian gallery, I think. It's a diorama implementation. Next one, please. The digital data retrieval. Now this one is a radio frequency ID interaction, RFID interaction, the sensor technique which we use in MCSM quite a lot. There is a diorama at the background, and there are objects in that near that computer panel or the display panel near that, which also resemble the same objects which are in the diorama. And the job is, if I want to learn something about, say, there might be different animals, say that I know, and those small objects which are on the table, if I take them, pick them up and put it in certain position, the computer will display the complete information about the object that you are talking about. It may be a rock, it may be a precious collection, and it may be a gemstone. And the entire information about that one will be displayed in the monitor. And this kind of an interactivity gives an additional information what we in normal ways cannot present. Next one, please. Sure. Digital archival is always, I think in most of the museums they are talking about this digital archival, though I think it's not yet practiced much, but we can archive our object, we can document our 3D object with the help of 3D laser scanning and computer techniques. This is not only for documenting our valuable objects, but also for making our information or our collection available or accessible to the entire world online. And that way we will be able to share our information even internationally. And if we are not having some information in some particular object sufficiently available with us, then we can always request others to provide us. Next one, please. Audio visuals are already used in many of our museums, two-dimensional as well as three-dimensional. We are projecting certain things on the background walls, which is a supplementary information about the objects, and that always helps. They make the static exhibits dynamic. Next one, please. People can carry audio guides as well as video guides or even digital guides nowadays with them. There are certain codes, even barcodes or QR codes, which we see in the newspapers and magazines nowadays. They are placed in front of the object, and once you bring even your handheld smartphone, if you take it near the QR code and switch on your camera and capture that QR code, the entire information about that object displayed will come into your mobile, and then you can read that at your leisure time or whenever you want. Next one, please. Gesture recognition is another technique which is being used in some of the museums nowadays. The visitor is supposed to stand at a particular place which is marked on the floor, and then visitor, he or she can move his or her hands in the air, which are captured by the camera, and the images are simulated on the display which is visible in front. So I think my colleague Mr. Chaudhary is going to show you very interesting images of this gesture control in the afternoon session. So you can create that feeling of participation. You are actually present at the scene. That kind of feeling a visitor can be provided, and that I think is very important. Next one, please. Simulated journeys, yes. I think many of you might have experienced in the Science City in Calcutta. You can go back in the history and you can travel even in the space and have that feel. It's an experience-based learning, And that's very interesting way of learning certain things. Next one, please. Interactive surface computing. This is a very popular technology nowadays. Large monitors, touchscreen monitors, where multiple touch is possible, and a lot of information may be, even the entire library can be accessible there, and you can open any book, any literature, any leaflet, and or even any image, and even any videos or animated graphics also can be viewed at your place. Next one. Visual seeker is a large amount of information is suppose displayed on the background wall, but you can tilt the monitor which is in front of you, mounted on the blue column. You can turn that, and by turning this monitor to the particular area of the background graphic, the entire information of that background graphic is brought into the monitor, and you can scroll large amount of information at your place. And that's a space saving. You can present a large amount of information in the limited space, so that it doesn't look like a big book. Next one, please. Yeah, I know. Sorry. Panoramic projection is, I don't need to talk about that. With the help of 3 or 4 projectors which are synchronized with each other, you can have large presentations, and that's very effective, I think. Okay, next one, please. Unmanned keys, computer controlled quizzes are there. I think they are very common, which help in involving visitors. Next one. Digital exploration, I think it's a simple computer kiosk, which some of our museums have also added recently. Next one. I just want to take 1 or 2 minutes on the digital panorama, which we are setting up here in the Science City, Calcutta. Right now also there are quite a few attractions here at the panorama. We have static panorama in our country, but this one we are going to make a digital, a full 360 degrees large visual of the size of 10 meter height and 122 meters in the entire length. That much area will be projection area with the help of 10 different projectors, and it will be projecting the story of evolution of man. And I think it's going to be a very interesting way of presenting the story of evolution. And you will feel, I think you are really taken back to the history and you are seeing those things happening in front of your eyes. Next one. This is just a technology, how we are going to achieve that, the 10 different projectors, how they will be mounted on the ceiling and how they will be synchronized with each other, and there's a huge lot of technology involved there. Next one. I think with the use of variety of sensors and computers and projections in presentations and flip books, which are just virtual books, you just turn your hand in the air in front of the monitor and the page of the book will be turning, and modern illumination techniques and people mover system, audio video guides, QR codes I talked, and with lasers. We can definitely make our presentations in history or archaeology museums very interesting. Thank you.
We now call upon Mr. Gordon to make the next presentation.
Okay, thank you, Sujata, for that. It's a great pleasure to be here today and to see such a well-attended event here on a Saturday as well. And also I'd like to thank the British Council for their support in making it possible for my being here. I want to start with just a few introductory remarks, three points. First of all, in my view, technology museums is really a tool. It's not an end in itself. You shouldn't just go and do an audio-visual presentation or a computer program just because it seems like a good idea. The uses of technology you have to think about them in advance, and it needs to be there for a purpose. Secondly, some 25 or more years ago, when I was a young curator and I was doing my diploma at the Museums Association, I spent some time at the Department of Museum Studies at the University of Leicester, which some of you may know in England. One of the things I learned when I was there at Leicester that I've never forgotten was the message that the objects do not speak for themselves. And it's our job as curators, directors, educators, it's our job to actually help give the public some understanding of the objects now carried in museums, to help give these objects some context. And certainly in my view, that's where technology can really have a real benefit. I think the third point I want to make is that technology in displays and exhibitions isn't just for museums of science or for science centres. It can equally be used to great effect in museums of history, of archaeology, and every other subject. But again, it really depends on using that technology properly. Can I have the next slide, please? A bit of background about my own organisation. National Museum Scotland is funded by the government in Scotland. We have 4 museums and a collection, storage, research and conservation site. So on the left-hand side you'll see the National Museum of Scotland, which is the largest of our museums in the centre of Edinburgh. At the top in the centre you'll see our National Museum of Rural Life, which is a working farm which tells the story of rural life in Scotland through the past few hundred years. At the bottom in the centre is our Aviation Museum, the National Museum of Flight, where we have some 75 aircraft on a historic airfield, including a Concorde aircraft donated by British Airways. On top right we have our National War Museum in Edinburgh Castle in the centre of Edinburgh, telling the story of Scots at war across the world. And the bottom right is one of our new stores at our Conservation Research and Storage Centre. The National Museum of Scotland, we receive something like 2.75 million visitors a year, with just under 2 million of those visiting the refurbished National Museum. Next slide, please. Now it strikes me, just to add to what the previous speaker said, there are 4 areas I want to go through in terms of use of technology in museums, and give some examples from some of our recent experiences and some of the new galleries we've recently developed. The first is on the visual, the second is physical interactives. I want to say a bit more about digital interactives. I will touch on online and digital content, but I'm not going to say too much because Cameron Royce is going to say much more about that, which he speaks after me. The next slide, please. So the examples I'm going to give you are from the new galleries we've developed at the National Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh. This was a project that cost some £50 million sterling. It opened about 3 years ago after being closed for 3 years. And in this project we created 16 new galleries, a new learning centre, new public facilities, shops, restaurants, and also this refurbished main hall where all the galleries emanate out from. Now we were very conscious of the need in our new galleries to appeal to and to cater for the huge range of visitors that we knew were interested in the museum. So we have huge numbers of young children, we have children visiting with their parents, we have teachers coming to schools, we have older visitors coming with their grandchildren. So we knew we had to cater for children from 3 or 4 years old to those who were 94 years old. So the way we approached that was, as we looked at each of the proposed new galleries, we thought about the different audiences who these galleries might appeal for. So different galleries were made to appeal more to different audiences. Some were aimed more at families with younger children, some were aimed more at adults. And so our use of technology in these galleries varied with the audience. Next slide, please. So my first example is use of audiovisual. Audiovisual can actually be used, in my experience, in a huge range of ways. This example is from our Natural World galleries, and what it shows is a quite deliberate use of an audiovisual programme to give some drama and to create a sense of wonder. It's particularly aimed at younger children and families, and you can see a family group here on the right. So what we have here is a vast space. It's about 30 metres tall, with galleries running and balconies around the outside. And in the centre of the space, we suspended about 35 collection specimens. And as you can see there, we've a film program running, 3 giant screens, and its real purpose was really to attract people's attention and interest. And what we hope to do through that is encourage the parents or the children to then look at the rest of the displays as they went around. And certainly, our research since we opened shows that this has been a hugely popular intervention. So that's audiovisual as for drama. Next one, please. Another simple and straightforward way we use audiovisual in our new galleries is really to tell a story. There are many ways you can tell a story. This particular example is from a gallery called Restless Earth. It's about the changing face of the Earth. It's about tectonic plates and earthquakes and volcanoes. It's on a very large screen. You can just see on the right hand side is a screen shown at an angle. But that screen is about 4 meters by 3 meters. And it tells a story. It's 8 minutes. We have some seats for people. It's in amongst the objects. And some of these objects are referred to in the programme. So it's actually more of this is more about communicating information. Although again, because the projection is very large, you can see it from quite a distance, so it also attracts people into the gallery. So again, it's aimed at giving people a sense of interest and engagement. Next one, please. Another type of approach we've used, and this I think bears a lot of resemblance to the previous speaker and what they've been outlining, is the use of a whole range of different types of interactives. Some lower technology, some higher technology. This is a simple one in our Animal World gallery again. The girl you can see just at the front to the left is standing on what is really a weighing machine where visitors can compare their weight to that of a whole range of animals. So you can compare your weight to a lion, to a gorilla, or to an elephant. And parents and children take great delight in actually taking turns to see which animal they most resemble in terms of how they weigh. So again, it's to get engagement from people, a bit of interest, particularly from children. And all the animals which are featured in this exhibit are actually around the displays. So there's a huge number, about 300 stuffed specimens, taxidermy specimens in that space. So again, that's about getting some involvement and interest in the subject. Next one, please. But we also use interactives in our new galleries in other ways. So this is a very simple one. This is about using interactives to help interpret objects. So again, this one was aimed at younger children. You can see 2 very young children at the front here. So in the centre is actually one of our important exhibits. It's actually the second oldest railway locomotive in the whole world, called Wyland Dilly. And in the front of it is an interactive we developed to help people understand about railway technologies. So again, it's an example more about getting people thinking about what's this object, how does it work, and then to encourage them to look at the other exhibits in the gallery. So that's an approach you can use in all sorts of ways to interpret a whole range of different objects. People often, I think of interactives as just about science. I don't think that's true at all. I mean, I have seen and developed interactives for all sorts of subjects in history, archaeology, science, natural history. I think that's easily possible. Next one, please. But we also wanted to develop some use of interactive exhibits that appeal to groups of people. I mean, I think too often museums, if they have interactives or other means of using technology in a display, they're too often aimed at one person. When in fact, in our museum, we find that families come together as a group. So what we did in this exhibit, actually, in a gallery, this is a gallery for younger children called Imagine. It's for children from like 3 to 8 years old. This is a section about Chinese material. So we have there an exhibit that's a Chinese dragon festival, and it needs a group of people to operate the wheels and the dragon moves around. So if there's a family of 5, they can all do it together. So again, the whole family gets involved together and explores the gallery. And again, we've also developed exhibits like which require a number of different users in a digital form. where perhaps 4 or 5 people can play a game together on the one exhibit. Again, giving people the opportunity to do things together, we found very, very, very important. Next one, please. But also, it's not all about computers, and it's not all about sort of fancy, high technology exhibits. There are simple things what one can do, from the very old approach of lifting a flap to find out the answer to a question, to on the right-hand side, something in one of our World Cultures galleries where children can spin the parts of the cylinder there, and they've got to try and get the figure in the right national costume. So again, aimed at younger children, but very simple, very easy to maintain, and a sort of simple technique that can be used in all sorts of different subjects and environments. Next one, please. Yep. Digital. A few examples of this. We have many touchscreen interactives around our new galleries. The first way we use this is through providing layered information. Not all of our visitors are the same. They don't all want to find out the same level of information. Some want a little bit, some want very detailed information. So in this exhibit, again, it's the Natural World Gallery, we can find out about every single animal in these galleries by touching the screen. So next one, please. So if you touch that screen, you get this screen, and then you can scroll left and right at all these different animals, and if you touch one of these animals, you find out full details on the elephant and what size they are, where they come from, their feeding habits, whether it's near extinction or not. So again, you can find out as much information as you, the visitor, wants to find out. Next one, please. But we also use touchscreen interactives to give people the chance, again, particularly for children, of taking part in a computer game. Again, we've found that engaging younger people through a computer game where they've got to try and do something and achieve an end is a very good way, because children actually, certainly in the UK, something like to try and do a game and see if they can beat their friends. So this is actually one about what would happen if you reintroduced wolves in Scotland. Would they eat all the sheep, or would they eat all the deer? And it's very, very, very popular. So that approach of using touchscreen interactives and using them for a whole host of different types of games is a very good way of interpreting a subject and getting involved in thinking about a subject. Next one, please. Now, a particular problem we had in museums was this exhibit. This is the largest exhibit. It's called Wall of Wonder. It stretches up 30 metres across 4 floors of the museum on both sides of this main hall. There's about 900 objects there, but some of them are quite high up, so we couldn't put labels on all of them because you wouldn't be able to read them. Next slide, please. So the way we interpret it is a whole series of touchscreen terminals where you can actually find out about every single object on this wall. Some of them have video you can actually watch, but you can also watch it on our website if you want to check it up at home as well. Next one, please. We also provided, as part of the new gallery, some on-site means of looking up some digital information, because while lots of people have smartphones these days, lots of people don't. But this has actually proved very popular. As you can see here, it's proved particularly popular with parents and children looking and finding out more information about all the objects in the exhibitions, or about the themes of the galleries, and doing that together. So again, that doing things together has been very important. Last few slides now. A quick bit about mobile technology. Alongside the new galleries, we also developed a range of different means for people to find out more through their smartphone. So next slide, please. So a couple of examples of that. First, we developed a museum tour for mobile phones. So very simple, it has an interactive map. It has the 20 most popular, most important objects around the museum. It's in a number of different languages, and you can use that for a self-guided tour around the museum if you don't want a guide to take you around face to face. But that's been very popular, and I think we'll see more and more museums across the world using this technology in the future. Next one, please. Another thing we've done is a Museum Explorer app, which takes that sort of idea of providing a challenge in an exhibit in the gallery and puts it on a smartphone. Next slide, please. So this is just some screenshots from that. And really what you've got to do is follow the clues in a quiz and track down the objects, and then you've got to capture them by taking an image of them with your mobile phone, and you can see if you've actually get it all correct at the end of the day. Again, so it's something, again, particularly aimed at young visitors to encourage them to explore the museum. Next one, please. Finally, just a quick summing up, some key points here for perhaps think about. First, technology, as I said right at the very beginning, isn't it's a tool, it's not an end in itself. Technology needs to be driven by the whole interpretive strategy of a gallery. What are you trying to do in the gallery is what you should think of first, and then think about the technology, not the other way around. The third point is that the use of technology needs to be appropriate to the audience. So if we were doing a family gallery, we might have many more interactives than we would in a gallery aimed at adults. And finally, the different types of technology really have a different purpose. They're aimed at different people. So a good example, I think, of that sort of thing is this computer game type approach, which certainly in our experience appeals more to children than to adults. So hopefully that sums up some of the highlights of the ways we approach use of technology. Thank you.
At the bottom, the new gallery is reading blue room colors. We have questions at the end of the session, so I'll invite the next speaker, Carolyn Royce, to give you more museum to make her presentation.
Okay, I'm going to do it from down here so I can operate my laptop. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I am Carolyn Royston, and I'm Head of Digital at the Imperial War Museums in the UK. I'm going to talk to you today about the museum digital landscape, Imperial War Museum's own digital transformation, and a little bit about what the museum is doing with regards to the World War I centenary, which is taking place this year, and some of the digital initiatives that we are using to engage audiences and to make the centenary relevant for today's audiences. So I wanted to just start off by giving you some context to digital and its application in museums today, and some headlines. Digital has had a massive impact in museums over the last 5 years. It means that the museum is now open 24/7, every day, every hour, all over the world. Digital technology now permeates every area of museum activity. Our visitors demand a high quality of digital engagement. They walk through our door and they expect to have that. They interact with us online, they expect to have that. There's been rapid growth in mobile access. So last year, for example, there was a 30% increase in mobile traffic and access to our content online. That will only continue to grow. So that means we have to make things for mobile use. Visitors and staff expect a seamless experience across devices. It's no longer people sitting at desks with a PC. It's people on the go with their smartphones, with their tablets, and in the future, very soon, wearable technology. And social media has played a big impact. People now expect to work, study, learn, and connect with their social networks wherever they are and whenever they want. And that's profoundly changed the museum's relationship to our audiences, because we can't expect them anymore just to come to our websites. They're going to be on all sorts of different content channels. So what does that mean for us as museums? And finally, digital skills development is required to upskill our museum staff so that we're able to meet these digital challenges. And all agile, scalable, and lean working. So rapid response. These projects can't take years and years to do because the technology will have moved on. So those are the headlines, the background to what I'm going to be talking about. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about what's happened at the Imperial War Museum. So just some background, 5 museums in the UK, about 600 staff, 2.3 million visitors to our sites per year. And our remit is to look at the impact of conflict from 1914 to the present day, involving Britain and the Commonwealth. This is our flagship branch in London. It's the interior of how it used to look. Lots of iconic objects. This is what happened last year. And hopefully this is how it's going to look in July of this year when we reopen with our new First World War galleries for the centenary. This is the Churchill War Rooms. This is a bunker under the Treasury building in London. This is where Churchill commanded the army during the Second World War. And you can imagine walking down those corridors. It has been restored just as it was then. But we also have a very interactive museum attached to the Churchill War Rooms. And this is a lifeline table, tells the story of Churchill's life, which is a multi-user table. Also HMS Belfast, which is a battleship moored on the River Thames. You can explore the ship, and we also have a lot of interactivity aboard as well to help tell the story. Imperial War Museum in the north of England, in Manchester, which has a huge digital display which dominates actually the experience in the museum. And finally, an aviation museum in the east of England, which holds over 200 aircraft. There's also a working airfield and a heritage site. So, a very interesting selection of museums and a very oldest film archive in the UK, second largest archive after the BBC, over 11 million photographs, second largest contemporary art collection after date. So the reason I'm saying this really is because the museum is vast in so many ways, but also so exciting to work with because the collection is so rich and so many different forms of media that it means that for me and my team that we can create amazing digital experiences because the material, the content is so great. So here are some of the things that we did. When I started, I should say, in 2009, that's only 5 years ago, we had no digital department. I was the first head of digital at the museum. There had been very little investment in digital. We had a very old website, really no social media presence, very complex IP and copyright issues, and the museum was extremely risk-averse about using the collections in the digital space. So not a very sort of welcoming environment, but also it did provide me with a lot of opportunity because there was so much that we could do. So just to jump ahead to 5 years, the quote up there that digital is now IWM's most important channel going forward was made by our Director General at the end of 2012. So the change in thinking from 2009 to 2012 is incredible. That moved on without me. That's technology. So I'm going to just show you, just to outline what happened in that growth. 5 million plus web visitors now. 750,000 collection items are available to search and download online. We make history content for a wide range of audiences. 40,000 Twitter followers, 45,000 Facebook fans. We have a strong e-commerce presence, so people buying things off on our website. We're open 24/7, as I said, and accessible worldwide. So you no longer have to just come to one of our physical buildings. IWM is everywhere. We've, as I said, a 30% increase in traffic. We're a global brand now. And the department is seen as a leader in digital transformation. So that's 5 years, just 5 years of change. And the whole thinking about digital in the organisation is completely different. So what have been the key drivers? Oops, sorry. As I said earlier, digital now is part of everything that we do in the museum. It's no longer confined to our physical buildings. Our audiences expect more, and that's driven us to help to serve them. We have financial pressures in the UK, and our funding is being reduced all the time, so digital can help us to be more efficient. So it's not just audience facing, it's also the back of house with our staff. And digital provides new forms of engagement, opening up new audiences, new products, new partnerships. So it's become something in itself. And we have the first World War centenary, which has really driven the museum on, because it's going to be such an impact for us. And very quickly, I just wanted to give you 3 examples of a user journey, a visitor journey in the digital realm. It's no longer, there's no longer one route. Like, this might be one way. They visit our website, they search our collection, they might add a comment to our collection, they might tweet or share that comment on Facebook because they want their friends to know. And then they might want to download the image as well and use it for their own personal use. Or perhaps they follow us on Twitter, or someone's retweeted something we put on Twitter. So they've linked on Twitter, they've linked to a history article that we've written on our website, they find that we've got a related exhibition on, they buy a ticket, they share that they bought a ticket with their friends, and so on. So that's a completely different route in. And finally, content is everywhere, not just on our website. So you can see in that bubble in the middle, IWM, but you can also see YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Flickr, all these different areas and places and platforms for content. And we as a museum have to think about where our audiences are and what kind of content we need to create for those audiences on those platforms. So here's some of the things that we made. We made a new website. And on our website, we added 500,000 new images for people to view. And they can see them there on the left. There's a catalogue page. They can find out information about that image. They click on that image and they get a lovely big picture. We enabled comments on our website so people can talk to us, but also other people who have an interest, and add comments. We added commenting in our galleries so that people can also comment on the exhibitions. These are not feedback forms telling us what they think of the exhibition. This is about them interacting with the content in the exhibition itself. Interactive tables, which other people have talked about. We started to think about our content and how we could make it more engaging and interesting for people. And so we wanted to move beyond just putting up our images and our catalogue pages, and wanted to tell stories, because actually that's what our content's about. That's the richness of our content. So we started to think about the ways to do that. So now we have things like slideshows where we show pictures and we tell stories about those pictures. And we try to present it in really visually arresting, interesting ways so that people can access it. They don't have to read a lot of text. They don't even need to have a lot of knowledge. What we want to do is try and capture their attention. And with this one, 10 incredible photos of the Imperial Camel Corps. It's got to be 10 great photos to look at, even if you don't know anything about it. And new learning resources, and again, we talk to teachers, what do they want? How do they want to use our content? They want lots of images and different media that they can incorporate into their lessons, and so that we've tried to create learning resources to address that. Mobile apps. And on social media, not just being on social media talking about there's a sale in the shop or just promoting things, but actually engaging with our audiences in rich conversations. And we've had some fantastic interactions. which are not just about us talking to people, but also about people talking to other people. And using Twitter, another platform, in a really interesting way, trying to be creative and trying to really highlight not just issues and themes, but also our collections themselves. And using Flickr for photographs. So this was an activity that we did called Faces of the First World War. We put up 100 photographs for Armistice Day in 2012 and asked people to help us to find out more about those, if they knew more about those people. We put it up on a Friday. On Monday morning we checked how many people had looked at the pages. 1.5 million people engaged with this over that weekend. Incredible numbers. And also showing off our work in different platforms. So this is working with Google, with our art collection, and being able to show it alongside other great art collections around the world. 5 minutes, fine. And commercial opportunity as well, so ways of actually generating revenue through selling our images and our film online. So why is digital important? Why am I standing here telling you this? I took that picture yesterday at the Indian Museum in the Coin Gallery. Look how many people are standing around that interactive waiting to use it. It's absolutely brilliant to see. We need to do more of that. So what can digital do? Why is it important? So it can help us deliver content in a variety of different ways. Our audiences want and expect it when they come through our doors or interact with us online. We can reach massive audiences beyond the museum doors. Just think about that Flickr example I gave you. 1.5 million people in a weekend. Explosive growth of mobile, so the museum's in your pocket, wherever you are. It can help efficiencies and ways of working. New services and new products. Supports learning in the galleries and online. Very briefly, I'm just going to tell you about the centenary, because it's going to be quite big, I think. It's happening over the next 4 years. The museum, IWM, is a leading UK cultural organisation, and there are over 2,000 national and international organisations in the partnership with the opening of new galleries. And we'll be developing a lot of really fantastic digital content specifically for the centenary. So new history content on our website. This is a project called Operation War Diary. People can tag different things in I think there's over 2 million pages already that are up on the website, and it will tell us more about what happened on a day-to-day basis during the First World War. And finally, Lives of the First World War, where we hope to document the lives of 8 million people that served in the First World War, including 2 million Indians. And we'll be crowdsourcing that project and asking people to help us, the public to help us with that. I was going to show a couple of very quick, have I got time? Just 2 minutes. Small technical changeover. Examples that are live on the website. So this is one of the learning resources that I was talking about. This is called the Empire Call to Arms. It's one of our new First World War resources. And this is really just showing off our collections. You can see very small amounts of text for our teachers. Wounded Indian soldiers. Okay, so it shows a different range of our collections. So some of our artwork, some of our photographs, some of our real objects, and also film. to help teachers and students to understand some of the stories and some of the history around the First World War. This is our collection search. As I said, there are 750,000 collection items that people are available to search. Click on that. Something should happen, which it isn't. I don't know why. Oh yeah, I was thinking about it. But anyway, it gives you, there we go. And then you go to our collection search. And on that collection page, if you've looked that up, you get a photograph. You can share this photo with your friends. But you can also download the image, which is available to use using IWF's non-commercial license. So for educational purposes, not commercial purposes, anybody can download that and use it in their lectures, on their own blogs or websites. So that just gives you an idea. Sorry to suggest I've got one more slide on my other page. I've not been very good about timing, I apologise. I just wanted to finish with some top tips, which I hope would be helpful for you, just to finish off what I was saying. And actually there's just two very quick slides. If I was thinking about how to approach digital in a museum, I think these would be the very simple things I would say to you. Digital engagement needs to be part of everything that you do. Start small. Content is everything. Don't worry about the technologies. Content is everything. And tell stories, lots and lots of stories. And invest in developing your staff's digital skills. And if I was a museum student, here are some more top tips. You are going to need digital skills in any job that you do in today's museum. Connect with other museum students around the world through Facebook groups, Twitter, LinkedIn. These are all platforms where there are other museum students, and they'll all be thinking and talking and trying the same things that you are. Follow what other museums are doing in the digital space, on their websites, on blogs, on social media. You'll learn so much. Experiment yourself with some small digital activities as part of your work. Try tweeting, write a blog post, use Flickr. Just get a feel for what it's like to use these different technologies and these different platforms, because that will help you when you start to think about creating content in your job and with audiences. And become the digital expert on your course. Hopefully, in your museum, it only takes one person. Remember, 5 years ago, there was no digital department in my museum. So every single one of you students, you can do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chanda. We have the next speaker, Dr. Rajesh Purohit of Allahabad Museum. And while he's getting ready to make this presentation, may I just remind everyone here that the Museums Association has offered free access to the Museums Practice website digitally, and the password has been provided to you, Professor Chanda. And I hope all of you will be using that.
Thank you. A very good afternoon to everybody. I'm Rajesh Purohit. I come from a place where the two river meets, the Ganges, the Ganga and the Yamuna. It's the meeting point of Indian culture. And Allahabad is also known for the most important event of our own time happened there. It's the independence struggle or the struggle for independence. So it is also considered to be the place where many historical events have taken place. With this note, I start my presentation, not on a slide, but since I was not aware that I will be having this facility here, today only I came to know after reaching here the theme of the topic. Making history visible, I will be telling to you what I have been doing for the last 3 years in Allahabad. Making history more and more visible, because you already have an entire session on digital technology. I won't be talking much about that. I'll be talking about other props, other aids and support to understand history, to make history more visible than ever before. The first step.
More examples of using technology.
Yes.
Whether it's
Yes.
or
Yes. I'm just about to tell that. So when I joined, I found a gallery dedicated to Gandhi. Is there in Allahabad Museum, where only photographs are shown. So I thought that how I can make Gandhi more visible using technology and other medium as well. So to use the technology, I did a small 6-minute documentary. What made Gandhi as Mahatma Gandhi, and that is none other than his struggle, 21 years struggle in South Africa. And while using this documentary, I also engaged the students of Allahabad University and the people who were interested in working on this documentary. The young, talented students of Allahabad, they participated. And wherever we went to shoot, for example, for shooting the train incident, we used the Allahabad railway platform, where a lot of people came in to know that there is a museum which is making a documentary and putting some digital information to their gallery. And the second important thing which I did, that I used certain symbols associated with Gandhi. I interpreted Gandhi first, then I developed these supporting system to depict Gandhi. Wherever you go to any part of the country for a Gandhi gallery, you will find Gandhi's photographs are shown along with charts, maps and all that. But I didn't do that. I used certain symbols like the charkha, the spinning wheel, as the gateway object of the Gandhi gallery. Then I have used the salt, which was produced at Dandi, which was there in Allahabad, which was auctioned way back in 1932, where it was auctioned for only 500 rupees, and that salt was used because I wanted to develop a gallery for the young people to make India self-sufficient. My interpretation has a meaning to it. Just for the sake of developing a gallery, one should not develop. If you want to develop a gallery, if you want to narrate a history, if you want to tell a story, the story should have a relevance and connectivity with the people. Otherwise, just for the sake of doing a digital or a non-digital form, to tell a story is a forcible application to the audience. And think about how you should realize about what the audience wants, or the audience-centric display and audience-centric things ought to be done. The second important thing which I will tell you, when I started making this documentary and all that, a very interesting historical personality and a historian visited Allahabad. Immediately I came to know that Roderick Matthews has published a book called Gandhi versus Jinnah. So immediately I SMS'd everybody, called everybody that Roderick is there in the city, come and we will discuss about Gandhi versus Jinnah. Showed that documentary, talked about Gandhi, invited people and created an atmosphere that in Allahabad Museum something is happening. Next day people started seeing the museum and we had a lot of experience. This is one way of narrating, making history more visible, more accessible, more understandable than ever before. The second important development which I have done is a heritage train taking 10 objects of Allahabad Museum. We have got 70,000 artifacts. Selecting 10 objects is a Herculean task. but we did it with the help of 20 curators who were trained under the leadership training program organized in collaboration with the British Museum in Allahabad, and we developed that story. And this was a mandate which I asked them, that if you come to my museum for this leadership training, we must have something visible, something concrete which is done in my museum. I don't want a mock exercise of all these leaders who are visiting my museum. So what we did, we collected the 10 objects, prepared 10 different stories telling the story of India from Chandragupta Maurya to the Chandrasekhar Azad, the freedom struggle martyr, which is, the place is known for Chandrasekhar Azad, where the museum is located. So we have used different objects, taken different narratives, wrote smaller narratives, and prepared an audio-visual presentation on a mobile. So that is available to everybody. They can take the mobile, go to the object, listen to the story, see the story, understand the story, and link the story that we have. And those stories are, there's a beautiful painting made by Ashit Kumar Haldar, made in 1920s. And that painting is depicting a story, an event which is very, very important, establishing link with India, with Greek. So that's how the Greek connection came when Seleucus' daughter got married to Chandragupta Maurya. And that is beautifully depicted in a painting. That Indian story starts with the Greek connection. And thereafter we are entering into another important collection, which is the most important collection of Allahabad Museum, the Bharat collection, where the Buddhist stories are depicted. Similarly, there are many things which we are not going to narrate all those, but we developed a heritage trail which is still on, and I request all of you, if you want to know anything about Allahabad, please go through the Allahabad Museum Facebook. Every night it is updated by myself, just to tell the people there is a museum. Please follow the website. Now, another interesting thing which I have used with both digital as well as non-digital work is a single story, a single object, multiple stories. And the single object is a very important object, which is the object of the day or the discussion of the day, and that object is none other than the Gandhara Maitriya Buddha. You are talking about a Buddha who is about to incarnate to bring peace to the world, and because this is the story that we want in contemporary times when the world is going through a different experience. And this single exhibit is Buddha, and revolving around Buddha is the Buddhist architecture is depicted, the Buddhist art is depicted, the Buddhist Jatak stories are depicted, Buddha's birth and everything. All the stories are surrounding that object, and the central object is there in a dark area with a small LED light just to focus attention to the object. So similarly, another important thing which I must tell you, another documentary which I made on an important character which the historians have forgotten, and that is none other than Haji Sultan Thanesari, the man who translated 16 out of the 18 books of Mahabharata into Persian, and his name was forgotten in the history. So I made a documentary in Kurukshetra where the person used to live at a place called Thaneshwar, and there is a historical mound which depicts the entire history of Thaneshwar, and in that entire history of Thaneshwar there is a person who knew Persian as well as Sanskrit literature, and who had a thorough knowledge about Mahabharata, and who was responsible for translating the greatest epic into the Persian language. And it is an illustrated manuscript. It is there in British Library. It is there in the Mansi Museum in Jaipur, but since it is a controversial item because of some family dispute is connected with that object, it is not on display in the Jaipur Museum, but it is one of the finest illustrated epic Mahabharata which is available in the form of a flip-flop book in my library or in my collection, which along with this documentary on Razamnama, how Razamnama got translated with the help of this man whose whose name has been forgotten in the history. So these are how we can make our history more visible. And talking about archaeology, basically I'm an archaeologist. I've worked in various archaeological places, and Allahabad is full of archaeological properties. Right from the prehistoric time, we have got rock paintings there and so on. I made another documentary with the help of the students to tell the story of these rock art paintings which are there just 150 kilometers from Allahabad, and telling the great technology of that period, because tools have been reported along with paintings, and the tribe lives there, which is still practicing those things, and the tribal life, the ethnic life, connected with painting and all that, are shown. And now I'm going to develop an artificial cave with all those paintings where they can interpret what the prehistoric paintings are and how the people used to live and all that. Then I'm also talking about a very important Mela that took place in 2013. It had taken place. That is Kumbh Mela. So I used that audience and established a small audiovisual gallery there in that Mela area, where I showed Allahabad through the ages, right from the prehistoric time to the first rice cultivation evidence that we had in 7 millennium BC, to the freedom struggle. The entire story of Allahabad is narrated in that. Allahabad is also known as the literary capital of India, and especially the Hindi literature and the Urdu literature. So, I mean, there are many things which can be done to make history more and more visible. I've got little time to discuss all these things, but I believe there are ample opportunities, huge opportunities are there. The ideas should come into your mind. The technology is always available at your doorstep, but it is all your wish and your commitment towards your organization. If you are interested, you can make your museum speaking more visibly than ever before. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful time.
That's wonderful examples of how you're animating your museum and your collection. May I now request Dr. Venugopal to make his presentation.
The moderator, my fellow panelists, the students of museology, and all of their small present here. I must first confirm that most of the presentation is mainly meant for the Delhi leg of the World Conference. So those who are Delhi, sorry, you have already seen some of the march. But most of the people here are actually students who are not being exposed. So I will take the liberty of taking that slides for the presentation. And 2-3 observations before I start. I start with the definition of museum. Because students of museum have the best major share of this audience. You might have known and studied the definition of museum, which incorporates additionally the intangible aspects of museum, material culture, or let's take it, material and non-material, the intangible aspects. Technology comes in handy as a tool for because the last decade or something, up to incorporate the intangible aspects of museum as part of the changing direction of museum is a dilemma for museums, museologists, practitioners. And we are not equipped for that. There's not much training equipment available in program. So technology is one of the best tools, bringing intangible to tangible. This has been mostly demonstrated in the modernist galleries, which one of the speakers. Later they are shown it through a slide. Then I must confess also, I am just a facilitator. Overall, the modernization which has been high for the 200 years one museum movement in India, with Indian Museum as the focal point for all these points of etc. Just bringing into visibility a group of people working over years and years and so many. So I just stand at that text only. I went to the director for the as facilitator. That's the conversion itself. So museology is a teamwork, not me or anybody. It's a teamwork. That's the first motto we are taking care of when we discuss. Now we come to that. We bring to the again. It's all for students. I am aiming for the students of museology. It's a challenge. It's a ninth in the world. first non-European, non-American means in the world? It's a question everything. I don't think. But I will not argue at this stage for the students of majority to work on that further.
Dr. Venugopal, your presentation is extremely interesting. I saw it there. Could I request you to please focus on the topic of how you make
that's coming up.
objects?
Yeah, I confess first itself. I must have the liberty as speaker to confess myself. I have already told going to that. I just can't do that one. I will not explain on the intervention technology. Who that's feasible there. You know that first I confess. That's why then only I come to that. Other there was no intervention. I confessed first, then I came. So that liberty must be given to me.
Can you still focus?
Yeah, that's it. So I will not discuss much of the slides. I will plan through the time of it. So that is visible. That technological intervention is visible, which I already mentioned in my initial one. So I will not go through the description of that. I have already mentioned in my thing. So that's next please. Next one. Wherever possible, only I have intervened. That one. Next one. Let's go. Yes. Yes, please. This is one of the technology interventions. Earlier, this was not there. You will see visibility of this one. The interpretation of the details of where we are here now. Is available now. Yes, next please. There, the intervention of technology for making it visible and facial filter. Each one needs further explanation of intervention, like taken by the Felix and so many things and so on. But that probably the students will be able to hear whenever they come to the Indian museum, they will be able to understand. Yes, please. Yeah, so this is mostly visible intervention of technology. One fact that earlier I was told, because I cannot comment because I don't see much of Indian museum earlier. It is a closed, dark environment. Now we have opened up, brought more light, Tamasoma, camera, that concept, bringing the technology was the intervention for that. And the courtyard. Most people are. This is the process of going on. I just put a slide earlier, the one which is existing, and the one what was going on there. Second world war type of atmosphere there, and the latest version. So that shows the difference between, and thanks to mostly intervention by technology. And most of the people are able to identify some of the things. That's why I'm not explaining it on that one. Different as with archaeology, decorative art, textiles. Each and every point, especially this gallery, the anthropology gallery, so purely a scientific gallery with the intervention of the technological output from the NCS. Point gallery is another excellent one, which again a clash of cultural, natural, and the technology intervention, because the practitioners of collection-oriented cultural heritage, curatorial approach was added, the education was added, was supported and enhanced by the intervention technology, and this was made possible within 2 months. Now these are, let's go through that. First, I am not going to explain it, but it's a demonstration of description only. Now, this initially, what is the one which is already shown? But I feel that intervention technology is there, but nobody has assessed the fact. Evaluation and visitor oriented, we think that the intervention technology is good always. It may not be always. It's a questionable thing that has to be evaluated properly. So we are taking care of that. In the phase which has just completed, that's modernization phase 1, we have done some intervention. Now in this coming up phase 1B, that's coming up this year, we will be modernizing with the help of technology. Almost 9 galleries of art, archaeology, anthropology, where we will try to evaluate and get experience and feedback from our earlier intervention and try to incorporate the best practice technology for our phase 1. And in the phase 2, definitely all this will be studied 1 year, studying this oriented things, and then will be applied properly in the phase 2 as well. Yeah, this is just coming up. I told you we will be inspired by the evaluation of the information technology, which will be applied to the next phase coming up this year. These are historical. This is the one historical things. What we are going to do with a vision of Indian Museum, which probably has what I already suggested that these are all basically not appropriate for this operation. So I will stop at this stage with intention that what we are trying to take the experiences, evaluation, and there are the students of meteorology and the states are the people who might be able to influence the museum collections for the future information. Thank you.
Very well, thank you very much. And I think there should be a later occasion. Professor Supreo, may I request that there be a later occasion when Dr. Venugopal's presentation is again made fresh to students, so that there are questions specifically on the renovation and the thinking behind the refurbishment of the Indian Museum. I think it is very important for students here to understand that, and it requires a separate session. So that's my advice. Okay. Now I have a few questions, but I don't want to hog the time. I'd like to open up the house and invite questions from the floor, and I request Calcutta to come up on stage now. And I'd like to invite questions from the house. So if you have any questions, please put your hands up. Yes, please. Yeah, put your hands up if you have a question. I can see a hand there. Chanda, would you like to introduce yourself and say who the question is for?
Okay, thank you, Chanda. My name is Supreo. The British Council's Regional Director of Art. Thank you to all the panelists for excellent presentations and new ways of thinking about what the purpose of the museum is and what it can be. My questions are, I'm afraid, to the two British speakers, to Carolyn and to Gordon. You've done massive amounts of work to modernise your museums over the past 5 years. Carolyn, in particular, you said there was no one in that role before. But I don't believe that you alone brought those 5 million visitors to the website. So I'd be quite interested in how many people now, specifically at the IWM, have digital in their job brief, a major part of their brief. I also think that it's likely that everybody in all museum staff probably contribute in some way, so I'd be quite interested. Gordon, my specific question to you is actually about how you brought people along to a bigger understanding of what digital could offer to visitors, whether you met any resistances, and how you trained your own team so that it becomes completely a seamless part of the operation.
Thank you. Srinath, may I just add to that question, because I had a similar question, and maybe after Carolyn and Gordon, even Rajesh and Dr. Venugopal and Mr. Manikar could add their views, because it will be of use to students of museology here to understand what could be a potential digital team or structure in a museum, because these are also employment opportunities, things that you can think of as specialization. So over to you, Carolyn, and then to Gordon.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. So as I said when I started, there was me, and I inherited 3 other people from around the organisation who were, one of them was working in publishing, 2 of them, and the other 2 were working in our IT department. Now my team is over 20. That is very large for a UK museum. It's probably the second largest, or equal first in terms of size. I think only the Tate Gallery has a team of a similar size. And that partly is because we have so much work for the centenary, but also is a reflection of the increase in digital activity in the museum and for the digital media department to having to respond to the increase in digital that the organisation requires. So our remit covers online, mobile, social media, and all of the in-gallery interactives, as well as working with our commercial teams on all our e-commerce products, and also we have a collections product manager who works with our collections department. So we're developing specialisms within the department. Across the organisation, over the last 2 years, I would say specifically, we have started to see new posts appearing in the museum: digital learning officer, digital marketing officer, e-funding, so people who are raising money through engaging with online audiences, digital curator, digital researcher. We're starting to see these new roles in organisations, and these are people who are still dealing with the same activity. It's just that they are working in new digital ways, and so I think this is going to be the future for all museums now across the world, because, you know, as I said in my presentation, digital it permeates everything that we do. I guess there's one other thing I want to say, which is about the digital skills development, because these things don't just happen. And also, my department can't keep growing. We can't just be the digital people in the museum. So one of the things that I've taken forward in my organisation is thinking about how to upskill our staff so they feel more comfortable, more confident in the use of digital technology. So we run something called a computer club, which is a monthly lunchtime drop-in session where we basically let people use technology in interesting and creative ways, so that they just get a sense of what they can do. And this has proved really, really popular, as well as coaching and working with staff when we work with more projects so that they understand more about digital ways of working. It's got to be incremental, but it's also at the same time got to be rapid and fairly urgent, because this is the trend for our activity now.
Yeah, I mean, I get all the points Caroline's made. I mean, certainly in my experience, there's no overnight solution to putting more emphasis on digital. And inevitably, some staff will be more interested in that area than others. Again, like the P1 Museum 5 years ago, we did not have a digital media department. Our department is much smaller than Caroline, a little bit in the process of increasing the size of it. We started off small, but we also commissioned external work. But we're now bringing that external work inside the museum and doing more of it ourselves. We found that in some departments like marketing, communications, they were much more interested in doing digital things than others. In the curatorial departments, we had much more convincing to do that people should focus on it. But what we've found now is that younger curators in particular are now getting very interested, and they're very interested because they want to put their objects online so that more people can see them and find out about them. But also those curators who are doing research are used to working with academic colleagues and putting papers online, and I think as part of that they're also going to put objects online as well. But we also, like in P1 Museum, we've established a whole series of workshops for staff to come and find out about Twitter or Facebook, particularly older staff. And I think you've got to take a little step at a time and try and get some people who are keen involved at an early stage, and then use them to encourage the others. But it won't happen overnight. It will take a few years, I think, to actually, for anyone who isn't doing much in the digital sphere, to actually really start to generate momentum there.
Thank you, Roger.
As far as our museum is concerned, especially museums maintained by the Ministry of Culture, we have some problem with regard to the recruitment rules. Unless and until those recruitment rules are changed or prepared as per the requirement of the contemporary demands of museums, this is not going to happen. And second thing, when these changes are being done, there should be an interaction with the institutions like Calcutta University, Baroda, because I came to know in Baroda there are only 5 students who are pursuing a museum degree course. There are only 5 students. Baroda happened to be one of the most important institutions as far as the museology is concerned, because slowly the children are declining their interest for pursuing a career in museology. Because unless we develop, because digital technology is not only meant for digital experience. There are several other fields where they can work. They can work in publication, they can work in exhibition, they can work in social media, they can, literally in every field. Without digital experience, you cannot do anything. You have to work as the most important segment of publication. For example, if you have a recruitment on publication, you need to specify that museology degree with such and such degree with computer experience, with experience of preparing a catalog and all that. So unless you specifically ask the things there in the recruitment rules, the children are not going to benefit. So there should be a dialogue between the Ministry of Culture and the universities vice chancellor, so that, because I'm really concerned about the children who are pursuing such. But I'm sure that the NCSM must be inviting the students, giving some opportunity to the students, as I've been told that the students having museology diploma are also given opportunity in NCSM. Thank you so much.
Dr. Venugopal to tell us the situation of the Indian Museum.
As many people may have known, we are going to process of modernization, but up to now there has been an extraneous intervention of technology. Because I must confess, Indian Museum is an old, prestigious institutional base in this part of in India, and most of the people are not digital friendly, basically. That we cannot blame it. So the intervention suddenly an extraneous one is there, okay. But my focus is to develop intrinsic mechanism of how to sustain it, which probably we are planning to have current area with capacity building program, which is one of our mandates, to equip ourselves capacity building for these new challenges of technology. That probably will be taken as part of one of the mandates for by next year.
What I feel is at this moment, first it is essential to acquire basic minimum computerization skills for each student. But whatever the student is studying, whether physiology or some other subject, in today's world it is advantageous to have basic skills. I have seen in our museum profession, most of the times you need minimum skills of say Photoshop and CorelDRAW and file conversions and image processing and audio processing and video processing. I think with these many skills, the person can prepare at least basic presentations which can help in gathering presentations. So I do not know if such topics are covered in your syllabus here, and if they are, well and good. Another thing is, for web publishing, there are some professional people whose services can be hired. You need not acquire all the skills yourself. There are people available for such services, and they can be definitely hired for this purpose. In NCSM, we have a 2-year course, which is a MS course in science communication, which helps prepare people to prepare for museum curators, and that definitely includes topics on these things which I was talking about.
Thank you. Any other questions?
May I add something?
Yes, please. Yeah. You are in the yellow side. Can someone give us a microphone? Can you introduce yourself and say who the question is for.
Hello, I am Shani Ghosh, UGC Research Fellow, Department of Museology, University of Calcutta. My question is for Dr. Manika. What is the actual meaning of state-of-the-art technologies?
State-of-the-art technology. What does state-of-the-art technology mean?
What is the case of state-of-the-art technology?
As I understand, you are trying to know what is the state of technology being used in the museums.
State-of-the-art technology.
What is state-of-the-art technology? State-of-the-art technology that we need to use in our museums. I don't think we are using a very high-level technology in your museums, especially, in case of science museums and technology museums, there will be a level of little higher level. But in terms of art museums or history or archaeology museums, I don't think you need a very high technology and basic skills which I was talking about, processing of images and graphics, that should be enough for making good presentations. At times you need to incorporate some electronic components like using sensors and then compiling them with the computers and achieving some result. I think for that there are professional people available whose services can be hired.
May I ask Karen to add to that?
I would say sometimes simple is the most effective. And it isn't, you should never approach it as what's the technology, what's the content, and who are the audience. That's the very first thing. And then once you've worked out what it is that you're trying to achieve, then you can think about the technology. Sometimes it will be a very simple kiosk where you're just providing information that you want people to look at, pictures, film, a little bit of text. Sometimes it might be more involved, like some of the things you talked about. But always start with the content and the audience. And I would say if you're at the beginning, you're starting out as a museum and you're thinking about introducing technology into the galleries, that you should start small and build and grow. So you get more experience and people get more used to developing these things and understanding what your audiences want. You should go out into the gallery and watch your audiences using the things that you're making. Then you can start to be a bit more ambitious. But start small and grow incrementally. And I think that will be a much, much better route to success than thinking about technology first.
Thank you. Professor Hari Vasudevan, who is the question for? Or is it for everyone?
Sorry, I just have one question for our colleague from Scotland. You mentioned the case of the museums that come under your broad administration, one which actually deals with agriculture and rural life. How far is the digital apparatus that is being used in that particular museum? How does that particular museum operate?
Okay, if I answer the question correctly, it's about our National Museum of Rural Life and the role of digital in that. It's very similar to what I outlined for the National Museum in Edinburgh. In that we have touch screens placed around the galleries to find out more information. We have some games. We have some audiovisual programs. We have some audio programs as well, where people can listen to the voices of people who worked on farms in Scotland maybe 20, 50, 60 years ago, to learn more about the past. We're actually now looking at how we can use mobile technology to enable people to do a tour around the farm, because we actually operate a working farm with cows and sheep and pigs and animals around. So we're actually looking at whether we can actually develop a GPS-linked tour around the farm. But I think the approach we take to technology is pretty much the same sort of approach in all of our museums.
How large is this museum? I mean, for instance, you mentioned that you actually have a farm, but is it basically a gallery-based museum, or is
No, it has a new museum building that was opened in 2001, but also the farm itself is about 150 acres, and it also has some historic farmhouse on it, which is from the 18th century, and also farm buildings.
So there's a lot of movement that takes place.
Oh yes. People can see the cows being milked. They can see the horses ploughing a field and so on.
We take a couple of more questions. Piachi first.
I'm Piachi, I work in the Department of History. My question is that...
Anyone here? You want to speak louder? Hold the mic.
Oh, okay.
Put it on. It's on.
It's on. So my question is that we know that in Europe, and if we consider Asia, these continents are different, so it is obvious the communities here are different. So what is more suitable and applicable for the community in Europe? I think that the same thing is not applicable for us in the context that literacy is low here. And in that context, how do you feel, my question is to all the panelists who are on the dais, that how do you feel that the kind of digital thing we have seen today in all of your presentations, how do you feel that this kind of technological that intervention is applicable for our community in India, number one, and number two is that what about the marginalized groups and the tribes and underprivileged communities? Do you think that if we implement this kind of digital intervention in our Indian museum, do you think that that will help that group, the marginalized groups and underprivileged people?
I will try, and then after all the panelists have had their say, maybe I'll also add just 2 sentences to that of an example.
Okay, so I think that there are. Is this on?
Yes.
It is on. Okay. I think that digital can actually help a lot in terms, in response to your first point, which was about low literacy. I think that you can present content in lots of different ways, and if you make something that's very visually appealing, very easy to access, is very intuitive to use, so you can just walk up to something or you can hold something and you know what to do immediately, then these are things that then become very accessible for people, and they will, even if it's looking at pictures or watching some film or listening to some sound, these are all ways that you can interact and engage your audience and make your content very accessible. So that would be one way to look at it. In terms of marginalised communities, again, I think digital can really help with this, because what digital does that, say, a printed label can't do is tell multiple stories. And so you're able to deliver content and write content for different audiences and make it relevant for them. What's the story for them? What's the hook? What are they going to be interested in? And you can relate that content to those audiences. I think the other important thing that digital can do is, which I said in my presentation, is people don't have to come into the building. So communities who are not going to ever visit your museum.
So it's about children.
Yeah. You can go out, so whether that's through your outreach programs, if there is access to online, to the internet, I don't know if that's available in schools, for example, or on very low-cost tablets which are being distributed. But if there are different ways to outreach rather than expect people to come into a museum, which can often be very intimidating, a very intimidating place where people actually don't think they belong, or there's nothing for them, then that requires a different creative approach. But always, I keep coming back to this, is your content and the stories that you can tell and making it relevant for your audiences.
I think regarding the applicability of technology in the Indian context, I personally feel technology is universal and there is no prohibition or inhibition of any technological aspects in terms of different societies. If we talk about implementing technology in museums, yes, there may be some people who may not be well versed with the technology, but that should be considered as a challenge for all of us. And unless we take these kind of challenges, we won't succeed. Even when computers were invented and people started using it, many people didn't know how to use them. But that made people to think about the touchscreen technology and the window-based technology, and that has now made it so accessible to everyone. So I think gradually this will keep on evolving. And regarding suitability for the marginalized groups in Indian situations, in science museums we have created some exhibit areas where people don't have to operate any gadget or anything. Simply they will pass through some kind of a pressure sensors or ultrasonic sensors or even movement detector sensors, and the things will switch on or switch off as per the TV. I think that also will help a lot.
Want to add, Gopal? Do you want to add to that?
Well,
okay.
That was great.
I think the panelists are still responding to this question.
Mostly the use of technology as they mentioned. It may be good, and as a director I think it's useful, but the intervention of this stage, whether we have done evaluation of this, which I mentioned, we Indian contest, I don't think any, even including the national level museums, are not undertaking continuous regular evaluation so that we are able to see the effectiveness of my directorship or my curatorship. I am confident with my showing of my scholarship that one aspect of methodology, the efficacy of this technique used. We always in the meeting we tell it's a highly useful, but questionable. There's no statistics arrived as well as I know. Now this challenge opportunity for the students of methodology. They again coming back to this forum. This question is coming up. You must place it properly.
And to add, Dr. Venu, I must tell you, one should be very, very pragmatic. And another thing is that in Indian context, especially when we are dealing with art and aesthetics, please bear in mind too much of digital chaos, too much of digital programming, too much of arrangement of all these things has got two minus points. One, whenever there is a failure, there is nobody to repair it. They are all government museums. Please bear with me, I am handling the institutions. And secondly, the technology in every other day getting updated. When the technology today you are using, your ministry or your organization, your funder may not fund you substantially when the technology has updated on the next subsequently. This could be an alternative way of thinking along with the conventional kind of thinking or innovating non-technological things as an apparatus, as a supporting thing, side by side, so that the visitor interventions are not affected, visitor participation and experience are not disturbed. That is why things which are not touched by audience, like visual things on the wall, like the screens and all that, lesser touch screen, lesser interventions of technology would definitely not only produce a good aesthetic background to the ambience of the hall, but also gives a soothing feeling as well. Thank you.
Yeah, just a few points from me, because I would certainly agree with what the other speakers have said. I think, firstly, the starting point is really about, again, the audiences. So digital may, at the present time, be more relevant to some than others. But I would certainly encourage all Indian museums to start making that digital journey now, because if you don't, you'll be left behind. Because museums across the world are getting more and more using digital techniques. There's a revolution going on across societies across the world in terms of the use and impact of the digital sphere. So I think it's very important that in India that change happens too. Even if it may take quite a long time for some sectors of society, to have access to digital technology or to know how to operate it or use it. This is my first time in India, and I've been very struck by two things. Firstly, the pace of change in the country, which I've seen travelling from Delhi to here with new infrastructure projects and all sorts of other investments taking place. And I think alongside that, it certainly seems to me that in Indian museums, you seem to be at a point of change where there certainly seems to be many people who are very keen that the nature of Indian museums change and many more are modernised. And I think as part of that modernisation, digital is of key importance.
Thank you, panelists. I'm going to apologize to the audience now and bring this session to a close because we are nearly 35-40 minutes behind schedule. I know there are questions, but please take them informally after the panel. Hand over. I'd like to thank all the panelists. Let's please give them a big hand. And I'd like to hand over to Mr. Supreo Chanda, who also I should thank for organizing this panel and this session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And you see, before just closing up, I must clear a couple of things. Since yesterday of the stage and on the stage, we have been witnessing some passing remarks. So anyway, I make it very clear here that our museology course in Calcutta University is clearly divided 50-50. 50% is on the theoretical parts and rest 50 on practicals and experiences. And this is the only university course in India that gives the entire semester outside the classroom. And the 3 months is given for the internship, and Mr. Manevar also helped me out to put some of our students in Bombay also, when he was in Bombay. And another point came out yesterday that the last, we had the panel there. I was told that none of them were having museology background. But I will make it very clear that at least 3 of them were there with formal association with the museology department. First, Amareshwar Gala. He was teaching in the Australian National University and became the first professor of museum studies in the Queensland University. Then Gordon, he was associated in the National University, and none other than our Supreo Mukherjee, who is also a museologist. So yesterday I didn't have that chance to contest, so I make it very clear over here. And I must thank all the panelists who made their deliberation very clear. And I also thank Caroline who compelled us to taste the online the situation here. Because this is the first time for her only we made the arrangement here, and thanks to our assistant librarian, Suwal Babi. And I think Indra has something to say to when she stop, when she ends, we can have a quick lunch of lunch, a very moderate lunch. We have very moderate arrangement over here, and they start the next session. Thank you all.
I add something. There is a clinician's question, and our population is totally different from UK or USA or other countries.
What college?
Yes, there are problems. Most of them are illiterate, etc. Poverty is a problem. But it is not impossible to install modern technologies in our museum. We know that soft technologies, we have low-cost technologies. But the main problem is the resource mobilization. Main problem is the mentality of the authority. Main problem, fund is not the bigger problem. The main problem is the technician.
Thank you.
good afternoon to everyone. Respected dignitaries and delegates, my colleagues and faculty members from other disciplines, and my sisters and brothers. At the outset, I want to mention that I am not a student of museology, but I have been requested to conduct this session. Friends, you know there is a saying, history gives a man complete knowledge. History does not mean only political history, does not mean only economic history. Every discipline of study has its own history. Now the question is why it is said so. History gives a man complete knowledge. In this context, I like to mention from T.S. Eliot, the Nobel laureate in 1948. I quote, "Where there is no knowledge, there is no wisdom. Where there is no information, there is no knowledge. Where there is no data, there is no information." So if we see the trajectory of advancement of learning, which is the motto of Calcutta University, the starting point is data, where the emphasis is given on collection only. Now if we further process data for the purpose of understanding the relations among different variables, we'll get information. So information relates to description, definition or perspective and addresses the question of what, who, when and where. Now if we further process information for the purpose of understanding patterns, then we get knowledge. So knowledge comprises strategy, practice, method or approach. There we answering the question, how? Now we process further knowledge for the purpose of understanding principles, we get wisdom. So wisdom eventually embodies principles, insights, moral and archetype and gives the vision to answer the question why. Now we can understand where lies the importance of history. So today's topic is making history visible. And in the context, particularly in the era of technology, the interest nowadays focuses on the relationships between museums, artifacts, digital technologies and the web, and their role in the redefinition of museum itself as, I quote, communication engine. So museum nowadays considered as communication engine. The interaction between real ontologies, the empirical perception of material culture, objects, and the virtual ontologies, the digital representations creates new perspectives in the domain of data analysis, data sharing, data contextualization, and cultural transmission. In this way, every museum is a meta-museum, since artifacts, sites, and objects exist in relation and interaction with cultural processes. In other words, in the digital domain, a museum artifact is the outcome of a very sophisticated informational and communicational process contextualized in a virtual network of relations. The museum and its collections are themselves a site or a site fact because they create new contexts and territories of knowledge. With this introduction, I request Mr. Supreo Chaudhary, Director, Central Research and Training Laboratory, NCSM, to deliver his presentation. Mr. Chaudhary, please.
Thank you. With due respect to the chair and the audience, in the post-lunch session, it is very difficult. It is in fact a challenge to any presenter to hold the attention of all who are present. Okay, let me try. I will try to make it as interactive as possible. Now, what is history? Just I am not a history person. The first session today is now history. So yesterday is history. It has to be chronicled. There is no escape. You have to have technology. You have to have a technology solutions also that is adaptable, that can be adopted in a country like us. So it is very challenging. Now let me see. In fact, museum has come in a long way. There was a time when it was basically an object-based museum. Objects were there, story was told. Then came some knowledge-based museums because visitors were given a lot of importance. Museums started serving them accordingly. But still the fact remains that museums are basically narrators of what they have, or the narrators for the sake of learning. But what about the museums of today? Today's museums are expected to take more proactive role. They are the creators of culture. Mind it. So far they used to narrate the culture. Now today's museum is a creator of culture. So if they are to do so, there are certain attributes which must be highlighted, which must be adopted by the practitioners. They should have mastered skill on it, and also they must know how to leverage the benefits out of it. This is very important, and this is where technology comes into question. I belong to an organization which is basically a science museum, but the fact remains that whether it is science or non-science, it is a question of presentation. It is only the content keeps on changing. So here I will show you what are there in our kitties, and it is up to you from other fields to see that how you people can adapt. If you need any technology solution, we are here. We have our own resource. We never outsource anything for any of the such solutions. Very cost effective in Indian context. So we are not telling that this is all. In fact, it is just a beginning. But this is what we have in our bag. We are just showing basically. Basically, we harp on the term interactivity. This is the buzzword. And this is where National Council of Science Museum has the forte. What makes us special? We make people engaged. There was a time when we used to talk about the public understanding. Then came the public engagement. Now it is the time of public experience. Okay. More or less, we give emphasis on hands-on activities. We do a lot of things also for the uninitiated people. We cater science not only for the science people, but also for the non-science. This is the one part of the gallery, transport gallery, in Birla Industrial Technological Museum, one of our units, where it is showcasing the complete history of transport. So when it is talking about the traumatic engine, at least we are making the three-dimensional model in computer just to show how the things are looking like in that way. Now what is important to NCSM? Basically participation. We give lot of learning space. We not only invite people into our spaces, but also we try to reach out in different media. We try to engage people through different virtual reality based exhibits and all. And even we make it sure that we must make 2 or 3 traveling exhibitions on contemporary topics so that it can go in different places of the country within our network, because ours is the largest network. Now, this is where which is linked to today's discussion. Now, some new exhibits that complements the content. Now, this is called word scanning visual seeker. Now you have space constraint. You do not have much space just to show the entire timeline of any topic of your choice. What you can do, how you can handle it, or you have some artifacts which you do not want people to touch, but you want them to show. Maybe 2% to 5%, we all know that whatever holding you have, we are always in a position to show 2% to 5% of your holding. So some artifacts are there. You want to show how you can do it. This is one technology, very simple solution. Just to see, this person is moving this computer, where at the direction at which he is pointing out, the same information is getting retrieved on the screen. Now, if you are more curious visitor, you can go deeper into it. You can go deeper into it. Now this is another type of visual cigarette. Here in the last one you have seen that it is just moving in that way. But now you have a very big panel. So if you want to move it in the 2 direction, X and Y direction, so this is how you can do. You move here, you are getting all information. But if you want to see something up there, so you change the direction. That is there, very user friendly. Just to see how things are coming. Without disturbing the aesthetics of the gallery, the display of the gallery of any museum you can introduce. With a simple computer, you do not need even a workstation type of computer to handle it. Now this is another thing, tilt table. Now, for simplicity I am telling you, let us consider our state of West Bengal. You want to show that what are the tourist spots in West Bengal. So you can have your map onto this table, and there are certain hotspots on all the tourist map. So you adjust, you move the 2-dimensional movement, and wherever you take the hotspots, automatically you will get the pop-up window with video, audio, everything, whatever you like. just to see. So some information is needed. This is going on. You hold somewhere, you'll find that there is a pop-up window, the additional supplementary information. In fact, we have used this technology profusely in the Art Exploration Hall of Science City, Calcutta. Because the entire globe is scanned in terms of people, their culture, then what not, all the things. And accordingly, we have done it. This is another version of this tilted table. Now, if you want to see even in another direction, this is just XY. If you want to see in the Z direction, you just move it in that way. The image will get tilted. We wanted to show the internal mechanism of an automobile. This is where we used it. I am sorry that I couldn't show you the video because we didn't have the video for it. Even these are the extensions. We do something, then we keep on making it more versatile. This is another interactive planetary globe. If you want to have a hemispherical projection, if you want to do something, it requires a lot of computational skill and other things, because you need to stitch the 2D film into a hemisphere and all these things. This is on solar system. Now if you feel that in your museum you want to do something, on space or something, it's a very simple low-cost solution. Now, very interesting thing. Supposing you have gone to Buddha section. Buddha section is very popular with Indian museum and all these things. So you have different Buddha statue and all these things. So okay, there are 3 or 4 line levels against everything. You don't want to allow the visitors to touch. What you can do? You can make a small replica of Buddha. And just to see what this gentleman is doing. Here, instead of Buddha, okay, some models of fruits have been made. Whatever model is being kept, immediately its information is coming onto the screen. Now, if you make such posters of film stars, okay, you make one of Raj Kapoor, one of Bojantiwala, one of something. So, if you keep a poster onto that tray, immediately the related information will come. This is another. This is called video spinner. In fact, we all know that why we see a film as a film, because if your retina gets more than 24 frames per second, then you cannot distinguish one frame from the other, and you feel some sort of continuous image going into your brain, and this is how you see something moving and all these things. So just to show people how things are happening, so we made a video spinner. You have a mechanical, what should I say, that wheel. So you can move it back and front. So you can see everything. Just now the animal is moving because he is moving in this direction. If he moves on the opposite direction, it will go back. This technology is well in vogue in European countries, especially in the sports area, where the coaches want to analyze the movements, individual movements of the gymnast or a swimmer. This is another thing. This is a technology which can take you from micro to macro, macro to micro. If you want to go deep into your body, or if you want to take yourself from the extraterrestrial, space to inside your body, this is a very peculiar. Just to turn a table, it is going deep inside and deep inside. Or if you have multiple posters on something, maybe let me talk. In fact, we have developed one museum on Indian cinema, which is going to be inaugurated on 22nd of this month in Bombay. So what did we do? We had so many posters. No. In the premises of film division, we have made it as per the request of Minister of Information and Broadcasting, and it is being inaugurated on 22nd. This is a commemorative museum to celebrate the 100 years of Indian cinema. So, what did we do? We had a lot of posters, but we didn't have enough space to handle this problem. So, what did we do? So, we digitized all the posters, we kept here, and we use this technology. So, you choose it, you move here, so you can get it expanded or you can take it down. And give me 1 second. This is another thing. In fact, my senior Minister Manikar has already told that we always know that to conduct any quiz, we need a quiz master. The basic intent of developing any gallery is that at the end of your visit, we want to see that whether it has really added any value to your knowledge. So we keep a corner for quiz. For quizzing, you do not need to have any quiz master. Technology will take care of it. This is a gallery we developed for the state government at Jorhat, and the theme was on oil. So you see the way everything has been designed, it is reflective of something on oil and other things. In fact, 3 or 4 people, there are 3 options for participation of 3 visitors. So they can see, they can get the explanation, they can get the score also, and also the recorded applause at the end of the quiz show. This is another interesting technology which I think can be used in any archaeological museums as well. Now, if you want a virtual tour in Mohenjo-daro or Harappa, so you can have a 3D modeling and you allow one visitor to go. This is here. Just to see that these are the checkered block. The visitor is moving from one part to the other. If she moves in the wrong direction, immediately some sort of alarm will be there. So in the same way, if you want more involvement of the visitor, so you can do in that way. What is needed? Only the 3-dimensional software on the screen, but this is how they can enjoy. This is another thing. Now, if you want to be just in front of Taj Mahal or in front of Kanyakumari, you can have this type of technology interface, which we call in technology parlance as chroma keying. So this is also indigenously made. If you want to get it from outside, it takes, I think, more than 30 lakhs. Just to see. In fact, I will show this one. This is the video. Just to see that this person is moving his hand, all the balls are rolling from there. So it is getting just above his outstretched hands. Now, you can make, instead of ball, you can make so many things. If you want that, okay, you want to give some message in front of a particular relic or a particular site. So this technology can be well adapted. This is a virtual series experiment. I am not telling here. This is out of context. Yes, we are the maker of 3D theatre. You will find everything in the market at a very huge cost. One film will cost you for 1 year licensing almost 8 lakhs. And that too on cheap entertainment. But if you want something educative, so obviously you can come to us. Yes, we have the in-house expertise to develop it. Uh, 3D movies, these are done in 2 ways. Through computer modeling, you can develop something and then you can go for 3D movie. In other way you can even a live shot. Okay, you can take a live shot, you have 3D camera, accordingly you can do. And we have also expertise in doing it, we did it. This is one snapshot for what we have done in Nepal. And there are many things we have done. And now I'll show you another thing. Now you may question me how we are using in some domain other than science museums. I will show you one example through a video. Developed on behalf of Ministry of External Affairs at Kandy, Sri Lanka. There is a museum called International Buddhist Museum. In fact, all the countries where there are traces of Buddhism, they have been given one hall type of thing. So India was given one hall. This work was given to National Museum in the year 2009. Then anyhow I shouldn't say that when the ministry found that nothing is moving, NCSM was approached, and we the science toys makers, we did this gallery with replica and other things, and here we made it sure that we infused state-of-the-art technology. State-of-the-art technology means the technology which gives you some immersive experience, which gives you something more than, which will reinforce your learning. Just you see, these are the replicas. We have made it.
So these are the state-of-the-art technology?
No, I'll show you. I have to show you. I'll show you. Now, just to see that when we did it, we also made it a point to, we made it because since the space was very little, so we made half 3D for Ajanta cave. Now, it is a huge information that needs to be catered to the visitors or to the pilgrims. Then what did we do? Just to see, there is a multicast table. There is a multicast table where we have our own integrated technology which has got number of books prepared by us. You can flip the books, you can also browse the video, You can have lot of message of Buddha, lot of sayings of different sayings of Buddha, all the things. This is the state of art technology. Okay. The one part of the state of art technology. 3D is another state of art technology. Something related to augmented reality is a state of art technology. My intention of showing this video is that the principles or the applications we generally do in science museums, if you do it even in some non-science gallery, that adds value to visitors' knowledge, and it has been very well appreciated. And what I am told that because since it happened to be the last gallery, so all other all those countries which have done already these galleries, now they are telling that we are technologically backward, we must upgrade it. It has got kiosks and other things which I am not showing. May I get any volunteer, because I want that let somebody operate this one. It will be easier. Any volunteer? Please come. Now I will be talking about virtual museums. Now, in fact, our British counterparts have told so many things and so many. But there are also very relevant issues about cost, time, and other things. Here, I would like to propose a very cost-effective solution. How? With a very simple technology, we can go for having virtual museums. Okay, go to the next slide. And you know very well, virtual museum, because since museum cannot go to all corners of the country, and since now the museum concept is 24/7, so it is better to go always online on virtual platform. Please go. And it is more true for non-science museums, because since you have so many holdings and other things, so you cannot show all those objects into the gallery. So if you can digitize each of your objects properly, so time to time you can showcase in your virtual platform. Not only that, the technology which I will be showing you, that will also be helpful to the students in the sense that you can rotate virtually. It is just not scanning any or taking a photo and scanning the photo onto the computer. You can also rotate it 360 degree, or you can make it upside down. So it is also very educational tool for those practicing museology. Next slide. So what is the basic step in making a virtual museum development? That you have to have a proper exhibit selection. And traditionally speaking, to make it, you have to have a director like a person, then a curator who will decide that what items are to be on display and what not. Then you have to have a system designer who will design the system. Then you need to have a program interface person who will do the necessary programming and interface. And it is a huge time, number one, time taking, very costly proposition. Okay, you go to the next. This is, for identifying the exact space, how to make it and all these things. Next. Yeah, next. Next. Now, we have checked that traditionally the way the European or American museum fraternity go for virtual museum development, how much this cost, these are the cost. some of the things, because it is very difficult to get all this data, but we got it. So, number one, capability, we do not have capability that way. Number two, cost, really, for such a huge populous country it is not possible. Number three, we do not have enough bandwidth to load all those things and then get it downloaded as per our will and at a faster rate. Now let us see. There is a future training. In fact, Smithsonian has started doing that one and we have followed it. Now, what did we try? This is the art exploration gallery of Science City. We took a pilot project. What did we do? That we'll make a virtual tour and also we'll try to make it an interactive one. Go to the next slide. Now, what is done? This programming is such that if you have 4 halls, so you can have video for all the 4 halls, you can go from one hall to the other. Since we didn't have much time, what did we do in the meanwhile? When NCSN took up this coin gallery, what did I do? That the dilapidated coin gallery was also videographed. So number one, it will tell you that how you can switch over from one hall to the other. Number two, even if you make it a point that before renovation you will take such a photograph that will give you all the 360-degree view. That is also a history. This is also a very valid document. And what did we take? We take a simple F10 fisheye lens in front of a camera, very simple camera. We took 120 as a field of view and we stitched all the video. Then we did some computation analysis and accordingly go to the next slide. Now you take this one on exploration. We just click twice. Just cross, cancel it. Wait. I think it will come. Cancel. I got button. Do once again. Let's do it. We have done so many times. Should I come out and do it? Just to see, since it's a pilot project, just the hotspots. Hotspot means if you take there, you will get a pop-up window and you get all the details. It's visual, it's narratives, everything you get. And this one will lead you to the next gallery. Okay, let us see. Now, I will request you to go to this hotspot. You go click. Just to see that you will get all the details. Anyhow, there is a mismatch of resolution, so you will not get all the things. Now you just click once again, it will go back. Now you go there, you click this side. Slowly you click. So you can see, just you see, keep on moving. These are the other hotspots. Okay, you go to the next one. So you go. Just to see. So you will have entire 360-degree view of the gallery. Okay. Now, if you want to have a simple video of this one, you just click some of the hotspots. These are some things. You go back, just you click on it. You go to that right one. You go back. Then you go to the left side. And go further. Go further. Now click on this. Go further. Yeah, click on that one. This way. This is a globe. This is a globe which talks about the national anthem. You take it. So this is how you can go for layered information. Very simple. And it is not much loaded because there is a typical tube system which supplies this video. These are uploaded and easily this can be downloaded, no problem. So go back. Yeah. And even you can have a video also. You can have a 360. Now if you want to make it even, why I am telling you, if you want to see in that way, you can also see. This is home. Now, yeah. Now if you want to go to the other gallery, just you see. In fact, I found the curator in charge of gallery in the first stop. I was finding out. This was the...
She left.
She left. That's not true. This was the condition when they started taking down all the structures. So with this technology, even you can develop your display because it will give you the comprehensive idea. Now you click it, you can go back. Then you click there, you will go back. As if you have got number of halls, so accordingly you can hop from one to the other. Okay. That's okay. Now we can go back now. Cross it. Now let us see the cost component. How much does it cost? Only 5,65,000. It is just a one-time investment. And yes, you need to have the requisite manpower, trained manpower that is there. But that is very good compared to what we have seen. Yeah. That's okay. This is everything about it. And I have one request, I don't know whether it will be out of context, that Jadavpur University has got very good department called, this is called School of Education Technology. They offer courses, short-term courses on multimedia. And I have seen it, especially students from the art section and others. They go and they join, and their course structure is such that even a non-initiated class 8 in the past candidate can master Photoshop, CorelDRAW, all these things. So that may be tried. With that, I am indebted to the department, especially to Professor Chanda for giving me the opportunity. Thank you. This is for my session, but still I need to continue because I need to show some of the things on behalf of my colleague director, Mr. Islam, who couldn't come because Birla Industrial and Technological Museum has developed some software on virtual platform on zoology and chemistry. Just I will show you one small slide which will give you some glimpse that whether you can adopt such thing. The main purpose of such, the main purpose of developing such software is that all schools cannot afford to have the state-of-the-art laboratories. So, if these are taken, that problem can be some extent solved. In the same way, if you do not have the conservation laboratory and all, so you may think that whether some of the lessons can be taken up on virtual platform. In that way, you just show one. My colleague Arijit will show. Can anyone come to volunteer? In fact, I want an uninitiated to handle how to make hydrogen gas. I want an uninitiated person. You tell it. Gas is what? Common gas? Yeah, common gas preparation. Hydrogen. So this is Hello. Suppose we want to prepare hydrogen gas. We all know acid reacts with metal and just generate hydrogen gas. You just go through the processes, that's all. Nothing else. Please take some zinc using the spoon. Click on the spoon. Please click on the spoon. Okay. Take some zinc. Okay. Then click on the cork. Cork on the cork. Okay. Then the delivery funnel. Click on the delivery funnel. This one. Okay. Then delivery tube. This one. Then platform. Pick one. Okay. Then jar. Click on the jar. Click on the jar. Okay. Then HS. Okay, this box. Stop box. This mark. HS will react with zinc. The gas is being prepared now.
Gas preparation is complete.
Now we can, for the next time, we can go for testing, which we are not showing, but this is just a glimpse of what can be done. Even if you do not have the lab facilities, at least in your domain, if you can think, if you can chalk out the scheme, that way NCSM can come forward to help you. Thank you very much once again.
Sorry, over.
There is a question.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what is QTVR approach? Just you have mentioned.
Quick time virtual reality approach. This is there, quick time virtual reality. Because I didn't use all the jargon because people will get troubled with that. Just a minute.
Any question, please? So thank you, Mr. Chaudhary, for your nice presentation, where we have mentioned nicely the role of museum, not only as the narrator of culture, but the creator of culture. For the on-site visitors in digital museum, particularly the user science museums, you have nicely mentioned what visual sticker, tilty table, interactive planetary global information system, interactive object identification using RFID, video spinner, the wheel control video, zoom table, quiz master, and so many other things. And also we have shown the states of virtual museum development by which our students must have enriched their knowledge. And also you have shown one slide on behalf of say Embedding Islam, which is basically a virtual laboratory, as a chemistry laboratory. So many other things can also be done. So you have seen that how the digitalization and virtualization can be done in science museums. As I have some more time in my hand, particularly for the students, I'd like to mention that technology have been adopted and modified to meet the different functions of museum, namely the administration, collections and collection management, and audience services. Under administration, technology can be used for facilities management, event planning, ticketing, marketing, donor relations, and fundraising, publishing, and information technology. So far as the facilities management, event planning, and ticketing are concerned, there are software packages available. For example, under Beyond Systems International USI, they have developed a beautiful software for this facilities management, event planning, and ticketing system. For fundraising, membership, and donor relations, perhaps you know that donor relations is a very important thing for the museum establishment, because the survival of the museum depends on the institution's ability to cultivate relationships with the donors and to attract potential supporters. And for this purpose also some packages are available, like the laser stage, T-tapestry, etc. For advertising and promotion, both institutional websites containing wikis, blogs, Twitter functionality, as well as social networking websites such as Facebook and YouTube have become important for advertising and promotional vehicles for staying in touch with members and potential visitors. Friends, perhaps you know that many museums continue to publish materials in print format for sale and promotional purposes. For that purpose, the software consists of Adobe InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, Dreamweaver, etc. being used for publishing. Collaboration. Mr. Chaudhary has shown that museum professionals are entering in the field of working in groups, drawing on the expertise of many to perform complicated tasks. As a result, museums must respond to this conceptual shift in work organization to ensure that new professionals can perform in ways with which they are familiar. Institutions might introduce project management software or intranets to facilitate information sharing and management of projects for geographically dispersed real-time communication. Social networking tools are also becoming more commonplace within the museum workplace as more professionals are accepting these technologies as solutions for collaborative project-based work. And for this purpose, the Canadian Science and Technology Museum Corporations, they have Idea Bank for digitally mediated collaboration. Friends, information technology, the use of information technology. Recruiting and retaining expertise is a common challenge for small museums. But regardless of size, most institutions customarily outsource at least some of their technology needs to third-party providers. Though there is a debate relating the outsourcing because of the translation problem. Friends, coming to collections and collection management. Information about collections. Collections and information about objects are a fundamental component of all museums. Accordingly, the care and documentation of these collections are an integral part of museum work. Perry in 2007 notes, the museum collects information as much as it collects material things. Here again comes the ability of computers to process, store and distribute information. Cleaning data and adding to metadata are tedious and time-consuming tasks. Mitigating legacy data to new formats take time, and digital asset production continues at a prodigious rate. So, collection managers must have fundamental knowledge for information management techniques and management and use of databases. Collection management systems. Museum professionals must have a good understanding of how collections are maintained and managed and how information about these objects is recorded in a collection management system. A collection management system records, number 1, administrative information, number 2, transactional information such as accession, loan and de-accession, number 3, descriptive information, number 4, information regarding provenance, that is a source of origin, number 5, condition information, number 6, donor and valuation information, number 7, rights information, number 8, location and movement information. And for these purposes, softwares are also available. For example, Past Perfect 4 collection management software includes all these facilities. Now, Mr. Chaudhary has shown so many examples of digital imaging. The creation of digital surrogates and the management of digital born museum objects provides both existing opportunities and challenges for many museums. The advantages of digital information representations include the ability to make a virtually infinite number of perfect copies of digital surrogates and transmit them great distances with no loss in quality, to offer new levels of interactivity between objects, to take advantage of hypermedia and multimedia, to remove objects from the constraints of physical space and present arrangements impossible in physical galleries, to provide remote access to information resources for visitors, scholars, researchers, and students, and to target unique information needs by either broadcasting information resources to wide audiences or narrowcasting information resources to individual users. And for this digital imaging, the digital asset management also available as a subset of enterprise content management. Now, though the preservation of digital objects is a great challenge nowadays to the museum practitioners, it is also mentioned about the digital art. Digital born material has also raised questions about traditional categorizations and relationship among curators, conservators, and creators. There are programs such as Variable Media Network are the products of such work. Museums are also undergoing a conceptual shift that many believe has been triggered by the advent of network computer technology. Traditionally, collections have fallen under exclusive domain of curator. However, information technology allows such collection to be shared, at least as parcels of metadata and digital images traveling across vast telecommunication networks. While the museum will never cease to preserve its collection, opening up access has changed the focus of the museum from its preservation activities to its interaction and engagement with the public. Another museum function is audience services. The development of Web 2 technology has provided, and other latest versions also has provided museum professionals with new ways of thinking about connecting with other publics online and involving these publics in the museum environment. Paul Marty explained that it is, I quote, no longer about the visitor in the life of the museum, but the museum in the life of the visitor, unquote. Meaning that with the interactive web and new levels of connectivity, museum visitors access the museum before they physically visit it and continue to visit the museum websites after they return home. Mr. Chaudhary has shown different technologies for the on-site visitors using different AutoCAD and other virtual galleries for the on-site visitors. Now, it is also possible online visitors, because moving exhibitions online and out of the physical museum space has had a transformative impact on cultural heritage institutions. Yet the movement from hard space to soft space is also possible using technology, web technology, along with your GIS and others. This has become possible. So with these few words, I once again thank Mr. Chaudhary for a nice presentation, for his application of digital technology in museum and enabling the virtual museums, which will help our students and visitors and the common people in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mojunder. Thank you, Professor Mojunder. Thank you, Professor Mojunder, for his very well-informed and well-documented comments on Mr. Chaudhary's presentation. And it was I must appreciate Mr. Chaudhary. He has been, despite his very busy schedule, he managed to come in the morning, though he yesterday informed that he may be a bit late. But he was one of the earliest incomers and waited throughout the session for his beautiful demonstration. And I think his presentation is quite useful for the students, the researchers, and at least for me. It was so well informative, and there have been some efforts a few years back to integrate modules in our curriculum, especially that deals with AutoCAD and Photoshop and others, to the HCSM laboratory, because they have the right infrastructure. I still hopeful and again to float it again, so that you may be a partner.
I will welcome your students to my lab. No problem.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you to the audience also for bearing with especially on the Saturday, the weekend. They came in numbers and attended very attentively, attended all the deliberations from the morning to evening. The proper thanks are due to them. And I must thank Mr. Our own Alok Babu, who since morning he has been meticulously videographing, and I hope the edited version to be put up in the YouTube very soon, so that it will be available to all. And I must thank our Shitanshu Thakur and Srinivas Banerjee, who gave us voice and also the eyes also. And on behalf of the University of Calcutta, on behalf of the Center for Social Sciences and Humanities, I must thank the director, Professor Bhaskar Chakraborty, our Vice Chancellor, Surojan Das, for encouraging us. And also I must thank our Vice Chancellor Academic Affairs, Mr. Rubojyoti Chattopadhyay, who has been very much associated with the NCSM. So he in fact, from the very beginning, he encouraged me like anything. I am thankful to British Council and the National Council of Science Museum to collaborate, and I hope this collaboration will go on in future also. So I should not spoil the evening, the Saturday evening. So we can call it a good. Thank you.